The earth beneath Coochie looks the same as any other piece of Vietnam. Flat paddies stretching to the tree lines. Dikes of packed mud dividing the green into squares like a quilt sewn by patient hands. Water buffalo standing motionless in the shimmer of midday heat, their hides dark and slick, their breath the only movement in a landscape that seems to have stopped caring about the war. It is January of 1967, the dry season. The sun hammers the laterite soil until it cracks and splits into jigsaw patterns, and the air carries the smell of wood smoke from villages that may or may not still have people living in them. Sergeant Ellis Crenshaw sits on an ammunition crate outside the Tactical Operations Center and watches the heat distortion rise from the runway at Coochie Base Camp. 25th Infantry Division, Tropic Lightning. The shoulder patch on his faded jungle fatigues shows a bolt of lightning against a red taro leaf, and the patch is so sun-bleached that the red has turned to pink, and the lightning looks more like a crack in old plaster. He does not mind. 3 tours in this country have bleached more than his uniform. Crenshaw is 28 years old, 5 feet 7 inches, 142 pounds, narrow shoulders, narrow hips, hands that look too small for a soldier, but exactly right for the work he does. Sandy brown hair cut close, a jaw that could be called sharp if anyone bothered to look at it, and a scar across the knuckles of his left hand from the Ia Drang Valley in 1965. He earned that scar prying a jammed magazine free from an M16 that would not fire when he needed it to fire. He carries an M1911A1 now. The .45 caliber pistol is old, heavy, and it works every single time.
The men on his team call him Mole. Not to his face, though he knows and does not object. The name fits. He is small enough to fit where larger men cannot go. He has spent more time beneath the ground in Vietnam than above it, or so it feels. And he has come to understand something about the darkness underground that most soldiers never learn. The darkness is not empty. The darkness is full of sound, full of smell, full of things that want to kill you, and things that are simply there, watching, waiting, indifferent to your presence. Rats the size of house cats, spiders with leg spans wider than a man's hand, scorpions that glow pale green under ultraviolet light, as if the earth has given them their own form of illumination, snakes, centipedes, and sometimes, in the deepest places, other men. Men with weapons and patience and a knowledge of the underground that no American will ever match. Crenshaw understands this. He respects it. And that respect is why he is still alive.
He pulls a can of sea-ration fruit cocktail from his cargo pocket and opens it with the P38 can opener that hangs from his dog tag chain. The juice is warm and sweet, and he drinks it first, tilting the can to his lips, then fishes out the fruit with 2 fingers. Peach slices and grapes, and little cubes of pear, all softened by the syrup until they dissolve on his tongue. He eats slowly. There is no hurry. The briefing is at 1400 hours, and it is only noon. He has been told they found something. A tunnel entrance near the Saigon River, northwest of the base camp, in the Iron Triangle. That is not unusual. They find tunnel entrances every week in Coochie district. The Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese Army have been digging here for 20 years, since the French, and the ground beneath this part of South Vietnam is honeycombed with passages that no one has ever fully mapped. What is unusual is the size. The scouts say the entrance leads to something large, multi-level, active, and the intelligence officers are very interested in what might be down there. Crenshaw finishes the fruit cocktail and sets the empty can on the ammunition crate beside him. A gecko lizard is watching him from the sandbag wall of the Tactical Operations Center, its throat pulsing orange, its eyes fixed on him with the peculiar intensity of a creature that has decided you are either food or furniture. He watches the gecko back. In Harlan County, Kentucky, where Crenshaw grew up, there are no geckos. There are copperheads and timber rattlers and black widows in the coal tipples, and there are mines that go so deep into the mountains that you can feel the weight of the stone above you like a hand pressing down on your chest. His father worked the mines. His grandfather worked the mines. His great-grandfather died in the mines, in a collapse at the Benham No. 4 seam in 1921, buried under 1,000 tons of Appalachian sandstone. Crenshaw was supposed to work the mines too. He enlisted instead, traded one kind of darkness for another. The irony is not lost on him. He volunteered for tunnel duty the first time because he was the smallest man in his platoon, and the lieutenant asked who was willing to go underground. No one else raised a hand. Crenshaw raised his without hesitating. He had spent his childhood crawling through abandoned drift mines outside Harlan, exploring passages that no adult could fit through, breathing air that tasted of sulfur and coal dust and wet stone. He was not afraid of the underground. He is afraid of it now. But he still goes, because someone has to, and he is better at it than anyone else he has met. Fear and competence are not mutually exclusive. His father taught him that, standing at the mine entrance at 5:30 in the morning with a lunch pail in one hand and a carbide lamp in the other, afraid of the dark and going in anyway. Every single day. That is what Crenshaw does. He goes in anyway. At 1300 hours, an hour before the briefing, Private First Class Danny Rourke arrives at the hooch that serves as the Tunnel Rat team's quarters. He is carrying a duffel bag over one shoulder and his orders in a manila envelope that is dark with sweat. He stands in the doorway and looks around at the space with the expression of a man who has been told he is about to live somewhere and is trying very hard to find a reason to be optimistic. The hooch is not optimistic. It is a wooden frame structure with a corrugated tin roof and mesh screens instead of windows. 4 cots with mosquito nets. A plywood shelf holding books and ammunition in roughly equal proportion. A transistor radio playing Armed Forces radio at a volume that suggests someone turned it on days ago and forgot about it. The floor is packed earth covered with wooden pallets, and there is a smell that combines diesel fuel, insect repellent, and something organic that Rourke cannot identify and does not want to. Rourke is 19, skinny, red-haired, freckled in the way that only Irish boys from South Boston can be freckled, which is to say his entire face is a constellation of copper dots against skin so pale it seems to generate its own light. He has been in country for 3 weeks. He has been assigned to the Tunnel Rats for 2 days. He has never been underground. He sets his duffel on the nearest cot and looks around again. Corporal Marcus Hayes is sitting on the cot across from him, reading a Bible with pages so thin and worn they look like they might dissolve at any moment. Hayes is 25, black, from Birmingham, Alabama. His shoulders are broad, but his frame is lean, whittled down by the heat and the work until there is nothing left that is not functional. The other men call him Preacher. Unlike Crenshaw's nickname, Preacher uses his. He signs his letters home with it. Hayes looks up from his Bible and studies Rourke the way a mechanic studies a part that might or might not fit the engine. He does not smile. He does not frown. He simply looks. "You, Rourke," Hayes says. It is not a question. "Yes, Corporal." Rourke's voice is steady. Credit for that. "You small enough," Hayes says. He returns to his Bible. That is all that matters down there. Rourke stands for a moment, unsure whether to unpack or wait or speak. He unpacks. He is careful and methodical about it, which Crenshaw notes with approval when he arrives 10 minutes later. The boy has put his gear in the same order that Crenshaw puts his own. Weapon accessible, medical kit second, water third. Everything else does not matter. "Rourke," Crenshaw says from the doorway. The kid snaps around like he has been caught doing something wrong. "Sergeant, you ever been in a mine, a cave, anything underground?" "No, Sergeant." Crenshaw nods. That is the usual answer. Most tunnel rats have never been underground before Vietnam. They learn here. Some of them learn fast enough to survive. "What I need to know is this," Crenshaw says. He walks to his own cot and sits.
The springs creak. Can you breathe in a space the size of a coffin? Can you keep your hands still when something is touching you in the dark and you do not know what it is? Can you fire a pistol at a man who is 3 feet away from you in a hole in the ground and keep moving after you kill him? Rourke swallows. His Adam's apple bobs. "I can, Sergeant." "You do not know that," Crenshaw says, not unkindly. "Nobody knows until they are down there. What I am asking is whether you are willing to find out." "Yes, Sergeant." Crenshaw looks at him for a long moment. Red hair, freckles, pale skin that will burn down to leather within a month. The kid is small. That is good. Small is what keeps you alive underground. "All right," Crenshaw says. "Briefing at 1400. You are with us." The briefing takes place in the Tactical Operations Center, which is a sandbag bunker with a plywood table in the center and a map of the Iron Triangle pinned to the wall. The map is covered in acetate overlay, and the acetate is covered in grease pencil marks. Red circles for confirmed tunnel entrances, blue lines for suspected tunnel routes, green triangles for ventilation shafts. The area northwest of Coochie Base Camp looks like a child has attacked the map with crayons. Lieutenant Warren Haldane stands at the head of the table. He is 24, West Point class of 65, blond and tall, and built like a man who played lacrosse, which he did. He is too broad across the shoulders to fit into any tunnel in Vietnam, and he knows this, and it is both a relief and a frustration. He commands the platoon. Crenshaw commands the underground. They have an understanding. Also present is Specialist 4 Tomas Restrepo, the team's medic. Doc Restrepo is 23, compact, dark, skinned, with the careful hands and sardonic expression of a man who has learned that the best way to handle horror is to make quiet jokes about it. He is from Miami, born to Colombian parents who came to the United States on a cargo ship in 1951 and opened a bakery in Little Havana. He smells faintly of iodine at all times, which is either professional dedication or a laundry problem. No one asks. Sergeant Bùi Minh stands at the back of the room. He is the team's Kit Carson Scout, a former North Vietnamese Army engineer who defected to the South in 1965. He is thin, quiet, and his eyes have the particular quality of a man who has seen both sides of a war and found neither of them satisfying. He knows tunnels. He knows how they are built, how they are defended, how they breathe. Some of the Americans do not trust him. Crenshaw trusts him completely. Haldane taps the map with a pointer. "Gentlemen, 2 days ago a patrol from Bravo Company found a tunnel entrance here." He indicates a point near the Saigon River, in a tree line bordering a rice paddy. Standard concealment, covered with a wooden lid and about 8 inches of earth. They dropped a smoke grenade, and the smoke came up in 6 different locations within a 300-meter radius.
Crenshaw leans forward. 6 smoke outlets. That means a complex, not a single tunnel. A complex with ventilation built into it. That means permanence. That means depth.
Intelligence assessment, Haldane continues, is that this is a battalion-level complex or larger, possibly regimental. We believe it is part of the greater Coochie tunnel system, but a section that has not previously been mapped. He pauses, lets that sink in. A regimental complex. Crenshaw has cleared dozens of tunnels in his 3 tours. Most are simple. A single passage, sometimes with 1 or 2 chambers. A hiding place for a squad or a weapons cache. You go in, you clear it, you blow it or gas it, you come out. An hour's work, maybe 2. A regimental complex is different. A regimental complex is an underground city. Multiple levels, dozens of rooms, hospitals, kitchens, sleeping quarters, ammunition magazines, command bunkers with telephone lines and document caches, ventilation systems that would impress an engineer, water wells sunk from underground, trapdoors so perfectly concealed that you can be standing on one and never know it, and defenses. A complex that size will be defended. Not just booby traps, though there will be plenty of those. Active defense. Men with weapons sitting in the dark, waiting. Men who have lived underground for months, whose eyes have adjusted to the blackness, whose ears can hear a heartbeat from 20 meters through solid earth. What does Division want? Crenshaw asks. Haldane looks at him. They want it cleared, mapped, exploited for intelligence, then destroyed. In that order? In that order. Crenshaw looks at the map. The tree line is maybe 500 meters long, 80 meters deep. It could be concealing anything. The tunnels could extend under the paddies in every direction. There could be passages running for kilometers. How many tunnel teams do we have? Yours, Haldane says, and Skelton's team on standby if the complex branches enough to need 2 teams working simultaneously. Crenshaw nods. He looks at Bùi Minh. The Kit Carson Scout meets his eyes and gives a barely perceptible nod. He is willing. He is always willing. The tunnels are the only thing Bùi Minh has left of his old life, and he enters them now to destroy what he once built. When do we go in? Crenshaw asks. 0600, tomorrow. Bravo Company will secure the perimeter. You have 3 days. 3 days underground. Crenshaw has done longer, but not in a complex this size, not with an untested replacement on the team. He looks at Rourke. The kid is listening intently, his freckled face tight with concentration. He has not spoken. That is good. Tunnel rats who talk too much at briefings tend to talk too much underground. And sound underground is the thing that gets you killed. The afternoon is spent on preparation. Crenshaw's ritual is specific, practiced, almost liturgical in its precision. He has performed it before every tunnel entry for 3 tours, and he will not deviate from it now. He lays out his equipment on his cot, the M1911A 145 caliber pistol. He field strips it, cleans it, oils it lightly, reassembles it. He loads the magazine with 7 rounds and chambers 1, 8 rounds total. He carries 2 spare magazines, 23 rounds to go underground with. That sounds like a lot, until you remember that in a tunnel, in the dark, at contact ranges measured in feet, you will empty a magazine in under 3 seconds, and then there is nothing between you and the enemy but your hands. The flashlight. Standard issue MX991/U, with the angled head that lets you clip it to your shirt and aim light where your body is pointing. He checks the batteries. He checks the spare batteries. He carries 3 sets. When
the batteries die underground, you die shortly after. He wraps the lens in green tape to narrow the beam and reduce the chance of it being seen from far down a tunnel. A flashlight underground is a target, but without it, you are blind. And blind underground is worse than being a target. The K-bar knife. 7 inches of carbon steel. Not for fighting, though it can be used for that. For probing. For cutting. For prying open trapdoors and scraping at earth that might be concealing a mine or a passage. The bayonet. An M7 bayonet, not mounted on anything, just carried loose. He uses it as a probe, pushing it into the earth ahead of him as he crawls, feeling for the subtle difference in resistance that tells you the ground ahead has been disturbed. Disturbed ground means a mine, or a trapdoor, or a punji pit, or nothing. You probe, and most of the time it is nothing. But the one time it is something, the probe saves your life. Commo wire. Communications wire, a thin, green cable that he pays out behind him as he moves through a tunnel. It serves 2 purposes. First, it lets the men on the surface know roughly where he is and how far he has gone. Second, and more importantly, it lets him find his way back. In a tunnel complex with branches and intersections and multiple levels, getting lost is not a theoretical risk. It is a certainty, unless you leave yourself a trail. And the towel, an olive drab hand towel that he wraps around his neck, for the sweat. Underground in Coochie, the temperature holds at a constant 85 degrees Fahrenheit, and the humidity never drops below 90%. The air is thick, wet, heavy with the smell of earth and rot and things that grow in darkness. The sweat comes within minutes, and it does not stop. The towel is not a luxury. It is survival. He watches Rourke prepare. The kid is doing all right, mimicking Crenshaw's layout, though he does not know why each item is placed where it is. He will learn. If he survives the first entry, he will understand the logic of the layout with his bones, not just his mind. Rourke. Sergeant. What did they teach you at tunnel school? Rourke straightens. Entry and extraction techniques, Sergeant. Identification of common booby traps. Vietnamese phrases. How to use the probe. How to fire a pistol in a confined space. How to control breathing in reduced oxygen environments. Crenshaw nods slowly. That is all good. None of it will prepare you for what it is actually like. Rourke's jaw tightens. He does not argue. That is another point in his favor. Here is what they did not teach you, Crenshaw says. He keeps his voice even, matter of fact, the way his father used to explain the dangers of the mine. Not to scare, to inform. The tunnels are smaller than anything you have practiced in. The training tunnels at Lai K are built for Americans. The real tunnels are built for Vietnamese. You will be on your belly for most of it. Your shoulders will scrape both walls. You will not be able to turn around. If you need to retreat, you go backward, feet first, feeling behind you with your boots for openings and drops. Rourke is listening. His face is pale under the freckles, but his eyes are steady. The air is bad. It will feel like breathing through a wet cloth. You will want to panic. You will want to scream and claw your way back to the entrance. Every man who has ever gone underground has felt that. The ones who live are the ones who control it. Breathe slow. Breathe shallow. Count your breaths. 4 in, hold 4. 4 out. If you start gasping, you will use up your oxygen twice as fast, and you will pass out, and I will have to drag you back. and dragging an unconscious man through a tunnel that is 2 feet wide is something I prefer not to do. Yes, Sergeant. One more thing. Sound. Sound is everything underground. The earth transmits sound in ways you will not expect. A man coughing 50 meters away sounds like he is right next to you. Your own heartbeat becomes the loudest thing you have ever heard. Do not speak unless you must. Do not tap your weapon against the walls. Do not drag your gear. Every sound you make tells the enemy exactly where you are and exactly how fast you are moving. He pauses. Questions? No, Sergeant. Good. Get some sleep. 0500 wake up. It will be the last good sleep you get for a while.
Night falls on Coochie base camp with the abruptness that is particular to the tropics. One moment the sky is a band of orange above the western tree lines, and then it is dark, fully and completely dark, and the sounds change from the mechanical noise of a military installation to the organic noise of Vietnam at night. Insects, frogs, the distant irregular percussion of artillery, outgoing, thumping away at grid coordinates that someone has decided contain enemy positions. Crenshaw lies on his cot and does not sleep. He stares at the underside of the tin roof and listens to the sounds and thinks about the morning. Beside him, Preacher's breathing has settled into the deep rhythm of a man who has given his fears to God and found the arrangement satisfactory. Across the hooch, Rourke is too still. He is awake, trying to sleep, failing. Crenshaw recognizes the quality of that stillness. He felt it himself, his first time. He thinks about Harlan County, the Benham mine, his father coming, home covered in coal dust so thick that only his eyes showed white, and his mother running the bath, and the water turning black as ink. The sandwiches she packed in a tin box, bologna and white bread, and a thermos of sweet iced tea. His father eating in the dark, 2,000 feet under a mountain, sitting on a rock ledge next to men who might die beside him on any given Tuesday. The miners had a saying, "You can trust the mountain or you can fear the mountain, but either way, you have to go inside it." Crenshaw has adapted the saying for Vietnam. You can trust the tunnel or you can fear the tunnel, but either way, you have to go inside it. He closes his eyes, not to sleep, to practice. He lets the darkness behind his eyelids become the darkness of a tunnel. He imagines the walls close around him, the weight of the earth above, the temperature rising, the air thickening, his heartbeat loud and steady. He breathes. 4 in, hold 4, 4 out. Somewhere across the base camp, a radio plays a song he cannot quite hear. Something from home. A woman's voice, sweet and distant, singing about a love that waits. The song drifts across the wire and the sandbags and the beaten earth and enters the hooch like smoke, thin and dissolving. Crenshaw breathes. Tomorrow he goes into the earth. Tonight the earth can wait. Dawn comes at 05:15. The sky goes from black to gray to the pale washed blue of a Vietnam morning in the dry season, and the heat is already building before the sun clears the tree line. Crenshaw is up at 0500, moving through his preparation like a priest preparing for Mass. Every action has been performed before. Every action will be performed again. The comfort is not in the ritual itself, but in the knowledge that the ritual works, that it has kept him alive through dozens of entries, and that deviating from it invites the kind of error that kills men underground. The convoy to the tunnel site departs Coochie base camp at 05:45. 2 M113 armored personnel carriers, a jeep,
and a deuce-and-a-half truck carrying the security platoon. Crenshaw rides in the lead APC with his team. The vehicle smells of exhaust and hot metal, and the sweat of men who have not yet done anything strenuous, but are already sweating because the air is 80% water and 90 degrees at 6 in the morning. Rourke sits across from him, his M1911 in a shoulder holster, his flashlight clipped to the front of his fatigues. His face is blank. He is doing what every soldier does before combat, retreating to a place inside himself where the fear cannot follow, or where the fear can follow but cannot paralyze. Preacher sits with his eyes closed, his lips moving silently. Psalm 91, probably. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. Preacher has a psalm for every occasion. He does not impose his faith on anyone. He simply carries it, the way Crenshaw carries his .45, as a tool that has proven useful in the dark. Doc Restrepo checks his medical kit for the third time. Morphine syringes, bandages, tourniquets, atropine auto-injectors for nerve agent or insecticide exposure, intravenous bags, though starting an IV in a tunnel is nearly impossible, and he knows it. He carries the bags anyway. Hope is also a tool. Bùi Minh sits at the rear of the personnel carrier with his M1 carbine across his knees. He has not spoken since the briefing yesterday. He is looking at nothing, or at something only he can see. Perhaps he is thinking about the tunnels he helped build when he was on the other side. Perhaps he is thinking about the men who are still down there, men he once called comrades, who will try to kill him today. Or perhaps he is not thinking at all. Perhaps he has found a way to empty his mind before going underground, the way a diver empties his lungs before a deep descent. Crenshaw is never asked. There are questions you do not put to a Kit Carson Scout. Their past is their own, and whatever brought them across the line is a story they tell only if they choose to. The convoy reaches the operational area at 0620. Bravo Company has already established a perimeter. Soldiers in faded jungle fatigues and steel pot helmets crouch behind paddy dikes and in the shade of a tree line, watching the surrounding terrain with the practiced alertness of men who have learned that Coochie can kill you from any direction at any time. The tunnel entrance is in a clearing at the edge of the tree line, about 50 meters from the nearest paddy. A Bravo Company squad found it 2 days ago when a point man stepped through what appeared to be solid ground and sank to his waist in loose earth. They dug out the lid, a wooden frame covered with packed laterite, and shone a flashlight into the opening. The shaft went straight down, 3 feet wide, dark beyond the flashlight's reach, and smelling like a root cellar crossed with a grave. The point man dropped a smoke grenade, and green smoke billowed from half a dozen holes scattered through the tree line like geysers from an underworld where the smoke runs green instead of white. Crenshaw stands at the entrance and looks down. The shaft is about 9 feet deep, dropping into a horizontal passage that runs roughly north to south. The walls are laterite clay, packed hard and smooth by hands that shaped them years ago. There are no timbers, no supports. The clay itself is the structure, compressed by the weight of the earth above into something harder than concrete, and the passage has held for years without collapsing. He can feel the air rising from the shaft, warm, wet, thick with the smell of earth and the faint, sweet undertone of decay. Something is rotting down there, or someone. It is not a smell you can identify with certainty, and certainty is not what you look for underground. You look for information. The smell tells him the tunnels are occupied.
The warmth tells him they are deep. The draft tells him there is ventilation, which means the complex is sophisticated enough to have engineered airflow. Bùi Minh crouches beside him and studies the shaft. "Construction is good," he says quietly. His English is careful, precise, learned from American instructors at the Chu Hoi Center. This clay, very hard, very old tunnel. Not 1 year, not 2 year, maybe 5 year, maybe more. He reaches down and runs his fingers along the wall of the shaft. Smooth. See here. Tool marks, but small. These tunnels dug with hand tools only. Chisels, short-handled hoes. No machinery. One man digging at a time, passing the earth back in baskets. To build this, many men, many months. Crenshaw nods. "What does it tell you about the complex?" Bùi Minh looks at him. His dark eyes are steady. "It tells me this is important. They do not spend years building a tunnel for a squad. This is regimental, maybe division. And the defenses?" Bùi Minh's expression does not change, but something shifts behind his eyes. "The defenses will be the best I have seen. I would bet my life on this." "You are," Crenshaw says simply. Crenshaw goes first. He always goes first. He strips his gear down to the essentials. The M1911 in his right hand, the flashlight in his left, clipped to his fatigue shirt at the chest so the beam points were his body points. K-bar on his belt, bayonet probe tucked into his waistband, commo wire spool clipped to the back of his web belt, the wire paying out behind him as he moves. 2 spare magazines in his thigh pockets, spare batteries in his breast pocket, the towel around his neck. Everything else stays above ground. Helmet, web gear, canteen, rifle, rucksack. None of it fits in a tunnel, and all of it makes noise. Underground, you are stripped down to the most primitive version of yourself. A man, a pistol, and a light. That is all the tunnel allows. He sits on the edge of the shaft with his legs dangling into the darkness. The morning sun hits his back, and the heat from the tunnel rises around his legs like steam from a manhole. Below him, the shaft drops 9 feet into blackness. He looks at his team. Preacher, Rourke, Doc, Bùi Minh. They are arrayed around the entrance, waiting. Preacher's lips are moving. Rourke's face is the color of old paper. Doc has his medical kit open, ready. Bùi Minh is watching the tree line with the particular attention of a man who knows what might be hiding in it. "Standard protocol," Crenshaw says. His voice is low, calm, the same voice his father used when explaining the coal face. "I go first. Preacher follows at 10-meter intervals. Rourke, you stay at the shaft entrance until I call you down. Doc, topside with a litter ready. Bùi Minh, you are my ears up here. Anything changes, 3 tugs on the wire." Nods all around. Crenshaw turns on his flashlight. The green taped beam cuts into the shaft like a laser, illuminating the smooth clay walls and the passage opening at the bottom. He can see maybe 8 feet of the horizontal tunnel before it bends. Always a bend. The tunnels never run straight for more than a few meters. Straight lines create kill zones. Bends create safety. The men who built these tunnels understood that principle as well as any military engineer. He takes a breath. 4 in. Hold 4. 4 out. And drops into the shaft. The landing is soft, packed earth, dry despite the humidity. His boots make almost no sound.
He is immediately on his belly, the .45 extended in front of him, the flashlight beam probing the passage ahead. The tunnel is 24 inches wide and perhaps 30 inches high. He cannot kneel. He cannot crouch. He can only crawl on his elbows and knees, pushing himself forward with his toes, the earth scraping against his chest and his back simultaneously. The walls are smooth, polished by years of bodies sliding through this passage, and the clay is cool against his skin for the first 3 feet. Then the heat hits. 85 degrees, 90% humidity. The air is thick, wet, and it tastes of clay and smoke and something sweet that he has learned to identify as the smell of rice that has been stored underground. The Vietnamese stored everything in the tunnels: rice, weapons, documents, medicine, people. The tunnels were not just hiding places, they were a parallel world, a civilization built beneath the surface of a war. Crenshaw moves forward. His elbows find a rhythm. Push, slide, push, slide. The commo wire pays out behind him with a faint hissing sound as it unspools from the reel on his belt. The flashlight beam bounces and dances as he moves, throwing shadows that leap and retreat along the walls like living things. He reaches the first bend. He stops, listens. Listening underground is not like listening on the surface. On the surface, sound dissipates. It spreads into the open air and weakens with distance. Underground, sound is channeled. The tunnel walls act as a waveguide, directing sound with remarkable efficiency. A whisper can travel 50 meters. A cough can travel 100. A pistol shot can travel the entire length of the complex, bouncing off bends and junctions, arriving at the far end as a flat, percussive slap that tells anyone listening that death has entered the tunnels. Crenshaw hears nothing, or rather, he hears the tunnels themselves, the faint settling of earth, the drip of condensation from the ceiling, a sound that might be insects, or might be the blood pulsing in his own ears. Silence underground is never truly silent. It is a living thing, a presence, and it takes months to learn the difference between the silence of an empty tunnel and the silence of a tunnel where someone is waiting. He rounds the bend. The passage continues, straight for perhaps 6 meters, then bends again. The walls are the same smooth laterite clay. The ceiling is low enough that his back brushes against it with every forward push. He can feel the earth above him. Not just the weight of it, though that is always there. A constant psychological pressure that some men can bear and some cannot. He can feel its age. This earth has been here for millions of years. The tunnel that runs through it has been here for perhaps a decade. He has been here for perhaps 2 minutes. Perspective. That is what keeps you sane. Underground. You are a temporary thing in a permanent place. 30 meters in, Crenshaw finds the first chamber. The tunnel widens gradually from 2 feet to about 4 feet, then opens into a room roughly 8 feet long by 6 feet wide and 4 feet high. He sweeps the room with his flashlight. A sleeping area. Bamboo mats on the earthen floor, arranged in 2 rows. A small shelf carved into the wall holding a ceramic bowl, a pair of chopsticks, and a tin cup. A candle stub on a flat stone, the wax pooled around the base in a pale ring. The remains of a meal, rice in the bowl, still moist. Not fresh, but not more than a day old. Crenshaw touches the rice with his finger. Cool, but soft. 24 hours old,
give or take. Someone ate in this room yesterday. Someone slept on these mats. And now they are gone, or they are deeper, waiting. He notes the room in his memory. First chamber, 30 meters from entrance shaft, bearing roughly north. Sleeping area, capacity 6 to 8 men, recently occupied. He does not write anything down. Writing underground means stopping, and stopping means presenting a stationary target. The map builds in his head, room by room, passage by passage, the way his father built maps of mine passages in his head, carried them home, and drew them on butcher paper at the kitchen table on Sunday mornings. On the far side of the chamber, 2 passages lead out. One continues roughly north. The other branches northeast. A junction. The complex is already larger than a single tunnel. Crenshaw examines both openings. The northern passage is slightly wider, the earth more worn. More traffic goes north. The northeast branch is narrower, newer looking. He takes the northern passage. More traffic means more infrastructure. More infrastructure means more intelligence value. The northeast branch can wait. He tugs the commo wire twice, the signal for Preacher to enter the tunnel behind him. Then he pushes forward into the dark. Preacher enters the shaft without hesitation. He is larger than Crenshaw, broader across the shoulders, and the tunnel walls press against him on both sides. He has learned to rotate his body slightly, angling his shoulders diagonally to the passage, and this allows him to move through spaces that should not accommodate his frame. It is not comfortable. Comfort is not a concept that applies underground. He carries the same loadout as Crenshaw: 45, flashlight, K-bar, bayonet probe. He also carries a demolitions bag slung flat against his stomach, containing 4 quarter-pound blocks of C4 plastic explosive, a roll of detonation cord, and 6 blasting caps wrapped in cotton batting. If they find something that needs destroying, Preacher is the man who destroys it. If they need to seal a passage behind them, Preacher can bring down the ceiling with a charge placed precisely where the clay is weakest. He follows Crenshaw's commo wire, the green cable his lifeline through the dark. Every 10 meters he pauses and listens, the way Crenshaw taught him. Listen for breathing. Listen for movement. Listen for the sound that should not be there. The sound that is human in a place where humans are either your team or your enemy. Above ground, Lieutenant Haldane watches the shaft entrance through binoculars. He can do nothing now. His war is up here, managing the perimeter, coordinating with Bravo Company, making sure no one wanders over the tunnel complex and collapses it onto his men. The underground belongs to Crenshaw. It has always belonged to Crenshaw. Haldane is smart enough to know this and secure enough to accept it. Doc Restrepo sits beside the shaft with his medical kit open and a litter laid flat. The litter is a canvas stretcher on aluminum poles, designed for carrying wounded men across open ground. It will not fit in the tunnel. If someone is wounded underground, they will have to be dragged out through passages 2 feet wide, and the dragging may kill them faster than whatever wounded them. Doc knows this. He has done it before. The man did not survive. He checks his atropine injectors again. If the NVA use gas down there, and they often do, the atropine is the difference between choking to death and merely wishing you were dead. He carries 6 injectors. He hopes he will not use any of them. Bùi Minh stands at the tree line, looking at the ground. He is reading the earth the way a scholar reads a text. The slight depressions that indicate passages beneath. The subtle differences in vegetation that reveal where ventilation shafts bring warm, moist air to the surface. The anthills that are not anthills but disguised air intakes, carefully constructed to look natural, to breathe for the underground city without revealing its presence. He has built these things. He has crouched in these tunnels, eaten rice in these chambers, slept on these mats. The war has put him on the other side now, and he uses his knowledge to destroy what he once created. If there is a moral weight to this, he carries it in silence. 60 meters in, Crenshaw encounters the first booby trap. He sees it because he is looking for it, and because the 20-odd months he has spent underground in Vietnam have trained his eyes to notice what other men miss. A thin line across the passage, barely visible in the flashlight beam, stretched about 6 inches off the ground. Monofilament. Fishing line, probably. Connected to something at the wall. He stops. His breathing slows. He lowers the flashlight until the beam is nearly parallel with the ground, casting long shadows that make the monofilament stand out like a spider's web in morning dew. He traces the line with his eyes. It runs from a small hook driven into the left wall to a metal object partially buried in the right wall. A grenade. An M26 fragmentation grenade, American-made, probably captured from a supply convoy or taken from a dead soldier. The pin has been pulled, and the spoon is held in place by the tension of the monofilament. Trip the line, the spoon releases, and in 4 seconds, the passage fills with steel fragments, moving at 2,000 feet per second. In a tunnel 2 feet wide, there is nowhere to go. The fragments would bounce off the walls and the ceiling and the floor, creating a kill zone that extends 10 meters in both directions. Even if the fragments miss, the overpressure of the blast in a confined space would rupture eardrums, collapse lungs, and turn the air into a concussive hammer that kills as surely as shrapnel. Crenshaw reaches forward with the K-bar knife. His hand is steady. It has not always been steady. The first time he disarmed a booby trap underground, his hands shook so badly he nearly triggered it. That was 2 years ago. The hands have learned. He slides the blade behind the monofilament, just above the hook on the left wall, and cuts. The line parts with a tiny snap. The grenade remains in place, the spoon held now by the packed earth around it. He carefully excavates the grenade, pinches the spoon against the body with his left hand, and inserts a bent nail through the pinhole as a safety. He sets the grenade behind him for Preacher to collect. One trap disarmed. There will be more. There are always more. At 80 meters, the passage opens into a larger space, and Crenshaw's flashlight reveals something that makes him stop. A hospital. Underground, carved from the laterite clay, with the same careful craftsmanship as the rest of the complex. 2 bamboo beds with woven mat surfaces, each about 5 feet long, low to the ground. A shelf along one wall holding bottles, some glass, some ceramic, containing liquids he cannot identify. Bandages, neatly rolled, stored in a woven basket. A surgical tray made from a flattened American ammunition can, holding instruments that look handmade. Scalpels fashioned from straightened fishhooks. Forceps bent from wire. A saw made from a knife blade with teeth filed into it. The floor around the beds is stained dark. Blood. Old blood, soaked into the earth and oxidized to the color of rust. The stains are extensive. Whatever surgery happened here was not minor. Crenshaw examines the hospital without touching anything. There could be traps. An American. Curiosity is a well-known weakness, and the NVA have learned to exploit it.
A medical kit that looks too valuable to leave behind. A document placed prominently on a table. A weapon leaning against a wall. Touch it, and the trap triggers. He photographs the hospital in his memory. The layout, the supplies, the bloodstains, the surgical instruments. All of it tells a story. This complex has been in use long enough to need a hospital. The hospital has been used recently enough for the blood to still be dark rather than faded. The surgical instruments suggest that the NVA doctors assigned to this complex are skilled, resourceful, and accustomed to working under conditions that would make a civilian surgeon weep. He respects them. Crenshaw has an inconvenient habit of respecting his enemies. Not their politics, not their cause, their competence, their willingness to endure what they endure and still function. The men who built this hospital, who operated in it by candlelight, who saved,
lives in a hole in the ground, with instruments made from scrap metal, are not men to be dismissed. He moves past the hospital. The passage continues north. Preacher reaches the hospital 10 minutes after Crenshaw has moved on. He pauses, sweeps it with his flashlight, and crosses himself. The blood on the floor, the improvised instruments, the bamboo beds where men lay and screamed or did not scream, while other men cut into them with fishhook scalpels. He whispers something. Not a psalm this time, just a word, a name maybe, or a prayer so short it fits in a single breath. Then he moves on. 100 meters in, Crenshaw finds the first ventilation shaft. It rises from the ceiling of the tunnel at an angle, approximately 45 degrees, and climbs through the earth for what he estimates is about 15 feet before reaching the surface. The shaft is narrow, perhaps 10 inches in diameter, too small for a man to fit through but wide enough to carry air. At the surface end, Crenshaw knows, it will be disguised as an anthill or a termite mound, or simply a hole hidden under a bush. The engineering is elegant. The angle of the shaft prevents rain from entering. The narrowness prevents grenades from being dropped down it. The disguise prevents detection from above. And the airflow it creates is subtle but real. A faint current that moves through the tunnel system, carrying fresh air in and stale air out, keeping the oxygen levels just high enough to sustain life. Crenshaw marks the shaft's location by tying a strip of cloth to his commo wire. Above ground, the engineers will triangulate the position and mark it on the map. Later, the shafts can be used to pump in tear gas or acetylene before demolition. For now, the shaft is simply noted. He continues north. The tunnel narrows again, and for perhaps 20 meters, the ceiling drops to the point where he cannot lift his head. His face is 6 inches from the earth. The flashlight beam illuminates only the ground directly ahead, a patch of clay no larger than a dinner plate, scrolling past as he crawls. In this position, if someone were waiting around the next bend with a pistol, he would have no chance at all. He would see the muzzle flash and nothing else. This is where the fear lives. Not in the dark, not in the confined space. In the knowledge that you are completely vulnerable and completely committed. You cannot turn around. You cannot retreat quickly. You can only go forward and trust that the tunnel is empty ahead. And if it is not empty, trust that your reflexes are faster than the man waiting for you. Crenshaw's reflexes have been faster every time. He does not think about the times they might not be. Above ground, the sun has climbed to its midday position, and the heat is crushing.
Haldane has established a command post under a tarp stretched between two trees, and the radio crackles with periodic check-ins from the perimeter squads. Nothing moving outside. The war above is quiet today. The war below is the only one that matters. Taggart stands watch at the tunnel entrance, his M16 cradled across his chest. Private First Class Jimmy Taggart is 20 years old, stocky, from a wheat farm outside Wichita, Kansas. He hates being underground, hates even the idea of it. The one time he went into a tunnel, during a training exercise at Lai K, he panicked within 30 seconds and had to be pulled out backward while hyperventilating so badly he nearly passed out. He is not a coward. He is simply a man whose particular terror runs toward enclosed spaces, and the Army, in its infinite wisdom, has assigned him to a tunnel rat team in an advisory role that keeps him above ground. His job is entrance security. He sits at the shaft opening with his weapon ready and watches the tree line and waits. If the NVA decide to counterattack from above, Taggart is the first line of defense for the men underground. If someone comes out of the shaft who is not American, Taggart shoots them. It is simple work, and he does it well. Doc Restrepo sits beside him, eating crackers from a C ration can and reading a paperback novel whose cover has been torn off. He reads whatever is available. He does not care about genre or quality. The words are a place to put his mind while his body waits. How long they usually down there? Taggart asks. He asks this every time. He knows the answer, but the asking is a ritual that keeps the waiting bearable. Depends, Doc says without looking up from his book. Hours, sometimes all day. Mole once stayed underground for 11 hours straight. Came up looking like something that had been buried and dug back up. Taggart stares at the dark mouth of the shaft. I do not know how he does it. He does not know how you stand the open, Doc replies. Everybody is afraid of something. Mole just happens to be afraid of the thing most people are not. What is he afraid of? Doc turns a page. Ask him sometime, when he is in the mood for conversation, which is never. 130 meters in, Crenshaw discovers the scope of what they are dealing with. The passage opens into a junction. Not 2 branches this time, but 4. 4 passages leading in 4 directions, carved from the laterite clay with the same smooth precision as everything else in this complex. North, east, south, west. An underground crossroads. And at the center of the junction, cut into the floor, a trapdoor. He crouches over it. The trapdoor is made of wood, a frame of bamboo slats covered with packed earth on the top surface. When closed and covered with a thin layer of loose dirt, it would be invisible. A man could crawl over it without knowing it was there. But Crenshaw's bayonet probe found the edge, the slight give of wood where there should be the unyielding resistance of packed clay, and he scraped away the covering dirt to reveal the outline. He pries the trapdoor open with the K-bar. Below, a shaft drops into darkness, deeper than his flashlight beam can penetrate. A second level. The air that rises from the shaft is different, warmer, wetter, and it carries a smell he recognizes. Cook smoke. Someone has been burning charcoal down there, recently enough for the smell to linger. Charcoal means a kitchen. A kitchen means a permanent installation. A permanent installation on a second level means this complex is everything Bùi Minh said it was. Regimental, maybe division, a subterranean city. Crenshaw sits at the edge of the trapdoor and lets the implications settle. He has cleared battalion-level complexes before. They are dangerous but manageable. A regimental complex is something else entirely. Hundreds of meters of tunnels, dozens of rooms, multiple levels. Defenses that have been planned and prepared by professional engineers who understand that the Americans will come and who have spent years preparing for that arrival. He pulls 3 times on the commo wire, the signal for Bùi Minh to come underground. The Kit Carson Scout arrives 20 minutes later, moving through the tunnel with the fluid ease of a man who has spent years in passages like these. He does not need to adjust his body to the dimensions. He fits. These tunnels were built by men his size, for men his size. He reaches the junction and immediately begins reading the complex. His flashlight moves along the walls, the ceiling, the floor. He examines the trapdoor. He sniffs the air from the second level. He runs his hands along the edges of the passage openings, feeling for things that Crenshaw cannot see. "Tell me," Crenshaw says. Bùi Minh speaks quietly. In the tunnel, all speech is quiet. "This junction is a control point. See here." He points to small notches carved into the wall above each passage opening. Directional markers. This symbol means command area. This one means supply storage. This one means hospital. You have already found the hospital. Yes. The trapdoor leads to the second level. There will be a third. Complexes of this age and this quality always have 3 levels. The first level is for daily use, living, cooking, medical. The second level is for storage and communications. The third level is the command center, documents, planning, senior officers. He pauses, looks at Crenshaw. The defenses will increase with each level. The first level traps are designed to slow you and alert the defenders. The second level traps are designed to kill. The third level traps are designed to destroy the tunnel itself rather than let the command center be captured. Crenshaw absorbs this. You have seen complexes like this before. I have built complexes like this before. Bùi Minh's voice carries no emotion. He states it as a fact, the way a man states his own biography. Not this one, but ones like it. In Coochie, in 1963 and 64, before I crossed over. Who builds them now? Bùi Minh is quiet for a moment. There is a man, an engineer, very skilled. I have seen his work in 3 complexes that we have cleared this year. The same construction style, the same trap designs, like a signature. You know him? I trained him. A long silence. His name is Nguyen Van Phan. He was my student in the engineering company in 1962. He learned well. The weight of that statement fills the tunnel. A man who taught the enemy how to build the fortress, now helping Americans tear it apart. Crenshaw does not ask how Bùi Minh feels about this. The answer would be too complicated for words, and words underground are expensive. What do you recommend? Crenshaw says instead. Clear the first level completely. Map every passage, every chamber. Then, and only then, descend to the second level. Do not leave unsecured passages behind you. In a complex this size, the enemy can move through tunnels you have not yet found and come up behind you. How long? Bùi Minh considers. For the first level, 1 day, maybe 2. For the entire complex, if it has 3 levels, 3 days minimum. And that assumes we do not encounter active resistance. What are the chances we do not encounter active resistance? Bùi Minh almost smiles. Almost. None. They spend the remainder of the afternoon clearing the first level. The work is methodical, exhausting, and terrifying in the particular way that only tunnel work can be terrifying, which is to say,
continuously, at a low and steady burn that never spikes into panic, but never allows relief. The northern passage leads to a series of chambers that confirm the complex's scale. A kitchen with a clay stove vented through a shaft to the surface, the vent designed to disperse smoke so broadly that it is invisible from above. A water well, hand-dug, reaching the water table 12 feet below the tunnel floor. A storage room containing 800 pounds of rice in sealed ceramic jars, enough to feed a company for 2 months. The eastern passage leads to sleeping quarters, 3 chambers, each holding bamboo platforms for 8 to 10 men. Personal effects are scattered on the mats. A photograph of a woman, creased and soft with handling. A letter in Vietnamese script, the ink blurred by
humidity. A carved wooden figure, small enough to fit in a palm, shaped like a water buffalo. Crenshaw does not touch the personal effects. He has learned that the things men carry underground are the same things men carry everywhere. Photographs of people they love, letters from people who love them, small objects that anchor them to the world above. The enemy is human. This is inconvenient knowledge in a war, but it is knowledge nonetheless, and Crenshaw does not pretend otherwise. The western passage is shorter, dead-ending after 40 meters in a chamber that appears to have been used as a latrine. The smell confirms it. Even underground, even in war, there are basic necessities that must be addressed, and the NVA addressed them with the same engineering competence they applied to everything else. The latrine chamber is separated from the living areas by distance and by a baffle wall that limits the spread of odor. It is ventilated by its own shaft. It is, Crenshaw thinks, with reluctant admiration, better designed than the outhouses on some American fire bases he has visited. By 1500 hours, they have mapped the entire first level. 220 meters of tunnels, 14 chambers, 1 hospital, 1 kitchen, 3 sleeping areas, 2 storage rooms, 1 latrine, 1 communications alcove with a field telephone, and 4 chambers whose purpose is not immediately clear. The field telephone is connected to wire that leads down through the trapdoor to the second level. The complex is empty. Whoever was here has gone deeper. Crenshaw surfaces at 15:30. The daylight hits him like a physical blow. After 9 hours underground, the sun is an assault. Too bright, too hot, too open. The sky above is enormous and hostile in its vastness. Underground, the world is close and tight and comprehensible. Above ground, the world is too large, and for the first minute after surfacing, Crenshaw feels exposed in a way that has nothing to do with enemy fire and everything to do with the absence of walls. This is the tunnel rat's paradox. You go underground terrified of confinement. You come up terrified of space. The tunnels rewire something in your brain, some ancient circuit that connects safety to enclosure, and after enough time in the dark, the open sky feels like falling. He drinks water, an entire canteen, one long, continuous swallow that leaves him gasping. The water is warm and tastes of plastic and iodine, and it is the best thing he has ever tasted. Rourke surfaces after him. The kid has been underground for 7 hours, his first time, and he looks like a man who has aged 5 years in an afternoon. His red hair is plastered to his skull with sweat. His face is streaked with clay and grime. His hands are shaking. But he is intact, and he is upright, and he did not panic. Crenshaw catches his eye and nods. A single nod. Nothing more. It is the highest praise a tunnel rat gives. Rourke sits on the ground and stares at the sky. His mouth is open. He is breathing the open air with the desperate hunger of a man who has been underwater and has just broken the surface. Oxygen. Light. space, the holy trinity of the above world, taken for granted by everyone who has not spent a day crawling through the earth on their belly. Preacher surfaces last. He walks to a tree, leans his back against it, and closes his eyes. His Bible is in his breast pocket, over his heart, where it always is. His lips move. Whatever psalm he is reciting, it is one of the grateful ones. Haldane
approaches. Report. Crenshaw takes another drink of water. First level is clear, mapped in full. 14 chambers, 220 meters of tunnel. Recently occupied, abandoned within the last 24 to 48 hours. We found a trapdoor to a second level. Bùi Minh assesses 3 levels total. Active enemy contact? Negative. 1 booby trap disarmed. First level defenses were minimal. Bùi Minh says the defenses will escalate on the lower levels. Haldane is quiet for a moment. Division wants a full exploitation. Everything. Documents, maps, equipment. Then demolition. We will need all 3 days. You have them. But Crenshaw. Haldane pauses. If it gets too hot down there, pull your team out. The intelligence is not worth your men. Crenshaw looks at the lieutenant. 24 years old, West Point, First Command. Saying the right thing. Meaning it. That is not always the case with officers, in Crenshaw's experience. But Haldane means it. Understood, sir. The evening is quiet. The team eats sea rations around a small fire that Haldane has authorized, because the perimeter is secure and the enemy, such as they are, is underground. Crenshaw eats spaghetti and meatballs from a can and does not taste any of it. His body needs fuel. He gives it fuel. The connection between eating and pleasure has been severed by the work. Rourke sits next to Preacher, eating ham and lima beans, which are universally despised by the American soldier in Vietnam, and which Rourke eats without complaint, because he does not yet know he is supposed to complain. Preacher notices this and says nothing. Let the boy have his innocence where he can find it. The tunnels will take the rest. Taggart is on the perimeter with Bravo Company, standing watch. He has not come to the fire. He has been quiet since the team surfaced, and Crenshaw knows why. Taggart wants to help and cannot. His fear of the underground is genuine and absolute, a phobia that no amount of willpower can overcome. And it shames him, even though no one on the team thinks less of him for it. A man cannot choose his fears. He can only choose whether to face them. And some fears are not the kind you face. Some fears are the kind that face you. And you survive by finding a way to be useful despite them. Taggart is useful. His above-ground watch is critical. The tunnels have secondary and tertiary exits scattered across hundreds of meters, and if the NVA decide to come out behind the American positions, Taggart and the perimeter squads are what stands between the tunnel team and encirclement. It is important work. It is not the work Taggart wants to do, but it is the work he can do. And Crenshaw has told him so, quietly, more than once. Doc Restrepo cleans his medical instruments by the fire. He is meticulous about this. The instruments go into a pot of boiling water, then into a cloth pouch, then into the kit in the same order every time. Scalpel, forceps, hemostats, scissors, needle, driver. The order matters because underground, in the dark, he may need to find a specific instrument by touch alone, and the fingers must know where everything is. Tomorrow we go to the second level, Crenshaw says to no one in particular. He says it to hear it, to make it real, to commit to it before the night has a chance to breed doubt. Preacher looks up from his Bible. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?
"The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?" Crenshaw does not share Preacher's faith, but he does not dismiss it either. Underground, in the dark, any light is welcome, even a metaphorical one. Rourke speaks for the first time since surfacing. His voice is hoarse. "Sergeant, when does it get easier?" Crenshaw looks at him. The firelight catches the kid's freckles, his red hair, the shadows under his eyes that were not there this morning. "It does not," Crenshaw says. "You just get better at doing it scared." Rourke nods. He does not ask another question. He eats his ham and lima beans. He stares at the fire. Tomorrow, they go deeper, into the second level, where the defenses are designed to kill, and the darkness is older, and the air is thinner, and the men waiting in it have been there longer than any American has been in Vietnam. The fire pops and sends sparks into the black sky above Coochie. Somewhere in the tree line, invisible, a ventilation shaft breathes warm air from the tunnels into the night. The earth exhales. Below the surface, in the dark, something waits. Crenshaw lies back and closes his eyes. He breathes. 4 in. Hold 4. 4 out. The second morning begins the way all mornings begin in Coochie. Heat and light, and the smell of diesel and dust, and the distant sound of helicopters beating the air somewhere to the north. Crenshaw is awake before the alarm. He lies on his cot and stares at the tin roof and listens to the base camp coming alive around him. Generators humming, boots on packed earth, the clatter of mess kits, the sound of a war that has been happening for so long it has developed its own domestic rhythm, as predictable and unremarkable as the morning routine of any factory town in America. He thinks about the second level, the trapdoor in the junction room, the shaft dropping into deeper darkness, the smell of cook smoke rising from below. Someone is down there. The first level was abandoned, cleared out before the Americans arrived, but the second level was not. The warmth of the cook fires told him that. The smell of recent habitation told him that, and Bùi Minh's certainty told him most of all. The men who built this complex did not abandon it. They retreated to the levels the Americans had not yet reached. They are down there now, in the deeper dark, waiting, listening to the sounds of American boots and American voices filtering through the earth above them, preparing. Crenshaw swings his legs off the cot and begins his ritual. The convoy reaches the operational area at 0615. The perimeter is unchanged. Bravo Company's squads are dug in around the tree line, tired but alert, having spent the night listening to the sounds of the tunnels beneath them. Several soldiers report hearing tapping from underground during the night. Rhythmic, deliberate. Communication. The NVA talking to each other through the earth, using the walls of the tunnels as a medium for sound, the way sailors tap on the hulls of ships. Crenshaw notes this. They know we are here. They know we are coming back. Whatever happens today, it will not be a surprise to anyone. At 0630, Crenshaw's team assembles at the tunnel entrance. Skelton is present today, with his second tunnel team standing by. Corporal Pete Skelton is 22, thin as fence wire, from somewhere outside Amarillo, Texas, with the quiet demeanor of a man who has learned that talking is not always necessary. He is a competent tunnel rat, not as experienced as Crenshaw, not as intuitive, but solid. He follows procedures. He does not take unnecessary risks. In the tunnels, those qualities are worth more than courage. Taggart is at his post at the tunnel entrance. He has been there since 0500, watching, waiting, doing his job. The night was long for him. The tapping sounds from underground reached his position, and he listened to them for hours, imagining the men below, their hands against the tunnel walls, sending messages in a code he could not decipher. Crenshaw briefs the team. Today we go to the second level. Same protocol. I go first. Preacher follows.
Rourke, you are with me this time. I want you on the second level.
Skelton, your team takes the northeast passage on the first level. We did not clear it yesterday. I want it mapped before we go deeper. Nods all around. Bùi Minh says the defenses will be heavier on the second level. Expect multiple traps. Expect the possibility of active defenders. If you make contact, do not pursue into unknown passages. Mark the contact point, withdraw to a cleared area, and report. Nobody dies for a tunnel today. He looks at each of them. Preacher, steady as a plumb line. Rourke, pale but present. Doc, already in position at the shaft entrance. Skelton, expressionless. Bùi Minh, reading the earth with his dark eyes. Questions. Silence. The only kind of answer that matters before going underground. Let us go.
Crenshaw descends into the shaft.
The transition from daylight to darkness is instantaneous and absolute, like stepping through a door from one world into another. The smell hits him first, the familiar underground smell of clay and humidity and enclosed air that has been breathed too many times. Then the heat. Then the silence, the particular dead quality of sound underground, where the earth absorbs everything and gives back only echoes. He moves quickly through the first level. The passages are known now, mapped in his memory from yesterday's clearance. He passes the sleeping chambers, the kitchen, the hospital. Everything is as he left it. Nothing has been disturbed. The NVA have not come back up to the first level. At the junction room, he pauses. The trap door is still open, exactly as he left it, the shaft dropping into the second level below. He shines his flashlight down. The beam penetrates about 10 feet before the shaft bends, and beyond the bend, there is only darkness.
He listens. Nothing. Or rather, the particular kind of nothing that may contain everything. He clips the commo wire to a spike driven into the junction floor, ensuring a continuous trail from the surface to whatever lies below. Then he eases himself into the shaft, feet first, sliding down the clay walls with his elbows braking his descent. The shaft is about 12 feet deep, angling slightly to the south. The walls are rougher than the first level. Less traffic down here means less polishing by passing bodies. The clay is damp, almost wet, and the air is thicker. Breathing becomes something you notice, something you manage, rather than something that happens automatically. At the bottom of the shaft, a horizontal passage extends south. Crenshaw lies flat and shines his flashlight along it. The passage is narrower than the first level, perhaps 20 inches wide, 25 inches high. He will fit. Barely. Rourke will fit. Preacher will not. Not without extreme discomfort and significantly reduced speed. He keys the commo wire. 2 tugs. Rourke, come down. 3 minutes later, Rourke appears at the bottom of the shaft. His flashlight beam is shaking slightly, the light trembling on the walls like a candle in a draft. His breathing is controlled, deliberate. 4 in, hold 4, 4 out. The breathing exercise Crenshaw taught him. It is working. The kid is scared but functional. That is all Crenshaw asks. Stay 10 meters behind me, Crenshaw whispers. Even a whisper feels too loud down here. If I stop, you stop. If I fire, flatten and cover your ears. A .45 in this space will ring your bell for an hour. Rourke nods. His freckles are invisible in the flashlight's green glow. His face is a mask of clay and determination. They move south. 20 meters into the second level, Crenshaw understands that Bùi Minh was right about the defenses. The first trap is subtle. A section of floor that looks identical to the rest, but gives slightly under the probe. He stops, examines it. A thin layer of packed earth over a bamboo frame, and beneath the frame, a pit. He carefully scrapes away the covering with the K-bar, revealing the pit beneath. 3 feet deep, lined with sharpened bamboo stakes, their tips darkened with something that could be soil or could be excrement. Feces tipped punji stakes. The wound alone might not kill you. The infection will. He marks the pit with a strip of cloth tied to his commo wire and edges past it on the narrow ledge between the pit and the tunnel wall. There is perhaps 4 inches of solid ground. He crosses it with his body pressed flat against the wall, his face turned away from the stakes below. Rourke follows. He crosses the pit without speaking. His breathing is louder now, faster. Crenshaw hears it and says nothing. Let the kid breathe. As long as he is breathing, he is alive. 40 meters in, the passage opens slightly, perhaps an extra 6 inches of width, and there are marks on the walls that Crenshaw has not seen before. Score marks, thin lines scratched into the clay at regular intervals. Bùi Minh would know what they mean. Crenshaw does not, and the not knowing is a weight he carries forward. 50 meters in, the passage bends sharply to the east, and at the bend, another trap. This one is different. A section of ceiling that has been loosened, held in place by a bamboo pin connected to a wire across the passage. Trip the wire, and the ceiling falls. Not enough earth to kill, perhaps, but enough to bury a man's head and shoulders, pinning him in the passage like a cork in a bottle while the dust fills his lungs. Crenshaw disarms it, cuts the wire, removes the bamboo pin carefully, and lets the loosened earth settle. Dust fills the passage and he closes his eyes and breathes through the towel around his neck until it clears. Behind him, Rourke coughs once, then catches himself. Sound. Sound is everything underground. Above ground, the morning passes in the slow, heavy way that mornings pass in Vietnam when you are waiting for something to happen. Haldane monitors the radio. Doc reads his book. The Bravo Company perimeter holds its positions. Taggart walks the tree line. He is checking the secondary exits that the tunnel team identified yesterday. Marked with green smoke during the clearance, they are now flagged with engineer tape, bright orange strips tied to stakes driven into the ground. Most of the exits are narrow shafts, big enough for a man to climb out of, but easy to miss if you are not looking for them. Taggart walks from marker to marker, checking each one, making sure no one has come up during the night. The 7th exit is at the far edge of the tree line, where the trees thin out and the ground slopes toward a dry creek bed. It is partially hidden by a tangle of brush and fallen bamboo. Taggart pushes through the brush with the muzzle of his M16, moving carefully, watching the ground. He does not see the punji pit. The NVA do not place all their traps underground. The exits themselves are defended, and the approaches to the exits are defended, and the area around the exits is defended, because the exits are the most vulnerable points in any tunnel complex. They are the places where the Americans come in and the Vietnamese go out, and they are prepared accordingly. Taggart's right foot breaks through a thin crust of earth and bamboo matting. He falls forward, his momentum carrying him into the pit, and the sharpened bamboo stakes receive him. The sound he makes is not a scream. It is something beyond a scream,
a sound that comes from a place in the human body that is only accessed when the body is being destroyed. The stakes penetrate his right calf, his right thigh, and the inside of his left knee. The tips are fire-hardened, sharp enough to pierce the sole of a jungle boot, and they go through flesh and muscle with the ease of needles through cloth. He is pinned. The stakes hold him 3 feet below ground level, his legs impaled at multiple points, his upper body twisted at an angle that his spine was not designed to accommodate. Blood. Immediate, heavy, pulsing from the wound in his thigh with the rhythmic urgency that tells anyone with medical training that an artery has been severed. The shout brings Doc Restrepo running. He crosses 50 meters of open ground in what feels like seconds, his medical kit banging against his hip, his boots throwing up clouds of laterite dust. 2 Bravo Company soldiers are already at the pit, one of them reaching down for Taggart, the other shouting for a medic, even though Doc is already there. Doc drops to his knees at the edge of the pit. What he sees tells him everything he needs to know in the span of a single heartbeat. The blood from Taggart's thigh is arterial, bright red, pulsing, pooling at the bottom of the pit around the stakes. The femoral artery, the big one, the one that kills you in minutes if it is not stopped. He slides into the pit. The space is barely large enough for 2 men. The stakes are everywhere, slick with blood, and Doc has to brace himself against them to reach Taggart's thigh. He pulls a tourniquet from his kit and wraps it above the wound, high and tight, cranking the windlass until the flow slows. But it does not stop. The artery is too high, too deep. The tourniquet is not reaching it. "Hold on, Tag," Doc says. His voice is steady, calm, professional. The voice of a man who is trained for this and is performing exactly as trained, even as his mind is calculating the math that says this equation does not balance. The blood loss is too great. The wound is too deep. The artery is in a place his tourniquet cannot reach, and his hands cannot compress. He tries direct pressure, his hands on the wound, pushing, trying to find the artery with his fingers and close it. The blood is hot and slick, and his hands slide, and he finds the vessel and presses, and the flow diminishes, but does not stop. The artery is partially transected, cut not clean but ragged by the bamboo stake, and a ragged cut is worse than a clean one because the vessel cannot retract and seal. Taggart is looking at him. His eyes are wide and clear with the terrible lucidity that comes with massive blood loss, the body flooding itself with adrenaline and norepinephrine in a last, desperate attempt to maintain consciousness. He is 20 years old. He is from Kansas. He does not like enclosed spaces. "Doc," Taggart says. His voice is quiet, conversational almost. "I cannot feel my legs." "I know, buddy, I know. We are going to get you out of here." But they do not get him out of there. The extraction takes 11 minutes, working with the Bravo Company soldiers to lift Taggart off the stakes without causing further damage. And in those 11 minutes, the blood loss continues despite everything Doc does. By the time Taggart is on the surface, on the litter, with an IV started in his left arm and a second tourniquet applied, his blood pressure has dropped to a number that Doc does not say out loud. His skin is gray. His breathing is shallow and rapid. He dies at 0942, on the litter, in the sunlight, 50 meters from a hole in the ground that he never went into and never had to. Underground. Crenshaw does not know yet. He is 60 meters into the second level, moving south through a passage that is narrowed to the point where his shoulders scrape both walls with every forward push. The air is worse here, thinner. The taste of clay has been replaced by something metallic, something that catches in the back of his throat and makes him want to cough. He does not cough.
Coughing underground is a luxury he cannot afford. The passage opens into a chamber. He sweeps it with his flashlight. A communications room. The evidence is unmistakable. A field telephone, NVA manufacture, sitting on a bamboo shelf. Wires running from the telephone into the walls, disappearing into the clay, connecting this room to other rooms, other levels, other positions. A table made from a wooden ammunition crate, and on the table, papers. Crenshaw approaches the table. He checks for traps first, runs the bayonet probe around the table legs, under the surface, behind the shelf. Nothing. Either the NBA left in too much of a hurry to trap their documents, or they want the Americans to find these papers. The second possibility is not comforting. The papers are maps, hand-drawn, detailed, showing tunnel passages in a schematic that Crenshaw can read even without Vietnamese language skills. Lines for tunnels, circles for chambers, arrows for direction of travel, and numbers in the margin that he recognizes as depth measurements. 3 levels. Bùi Minh was right. The map shows 3 distinct levels, each deeper than the last, connected by shafts and trapdoors. The first level, which they cleared yesterday, is the shallowest. The second level, where Crenshaw is now, extends further south and east. And the third level, the deepest, is marked with a symbol that Crenshaw does not recognize, but that he intuitively understands. A star. The command center. The brain of the complex. He carefully rolls the maps and tucks them into his fatigue shirt. Intelligence. Exactly what Division wanted. The maps alone justify the operation. But there is more down here. He can feel it, the way a miner can feel a rich vein in the rock. An intuition born from years of experience in the deep places. Rourke reaches the communications room. His flashlight sweeps the space and lands on the field telephone, the empty shelf, the table where the maps were. Sergeant, this is real, is it not? Crenshaw looks at him. What do you mean? I mean, this is not just a hiding hole. This is a whole installation. They live down here. They work down here. They plan operations down here. Yes. Rourke is quiet for a moment. He is processing something, rearranging his understanding of the war to accommodate what he is seeing. The tunnels are not primitive. They are not desperate hiding places dug by frightened guerrillas. They are sophisticated military infrastructure, built with skill and patience, and the men who built them are not desperate at all. They are organized, methodical, and deeply committed to a war they believe they are winning. I did not expect this, Rourke says. Nobody does the first time. They move on. The passage continues south, bending and twisting in the way all tunnels bend and twist. Each turn a potential ambush point. Each straight section a potential kill zone. Crenshaw probes ahead with the bayonet, sweeps with the flashlight, listens with every nerve in his body. Rourke follows, 10 meters back, his .45 extended, covering the rear. 80 meters into the second level, the passage branches. A narrow opening to the right, barely wide enough for a man. And the main passage continues straight. Crenshaw examines the narrow branch. His flashlight penetrates about 5 meters before the passage curves out of sight. The walls are rough, unfinished compared to the main passage. A secondary route, perhaps, or an escape tunnel, or a dead end designed to trap anyone who enters it. He does not enter it. Unsecured passages behind him are more dangerous than unknown passages ahead. He marks it with cloth on the commo wire and continues south. At 90 meters, the passage dips. A gentle decline, perhaps 15 degrees, the floor angling downward into the earth. The air changes again, wetter. The walls are damp to the touch. He is approaching the water table. Below the water table, the tunnels will be partially flooded. He has encountered this before. The sections where you crawl through 6 inches of tepid water, your face barely above the surface, breathing the thin air between the water and the ceiling. The decline continues for about 10 meters, and then the water appears. A dark, still surface that reflects his flashlight beam like a mirror made of oil. The passage continues into the water, and he cannot see where it exits on the other side. A water trap. One of the most effective defenses in the tunnel builder's arsenal. The passage floods deliberately, creating a section where a man must fully submerge to continue. The water trap serves multiple purposes. It blocks gas attacks from flowing between levels. It slows any pursuing force to a crawl. And it creates a choke point where a defender on the far side can simply wait and shoot anyone who emerges from the water, blind and gasping. Crenshaw has been through water traps before. He does not enjoy them. The experience of submerging yourself in black water in a tunnel too narrow to turn around, pulling yourself forward along a commo wire or a root or just the earth itself, not knowing how far the flooded section extends, not knowing if you will surface on the other side or if the tunnel continues underwater until your lungs give out, is an experience that falls outside the normal range of human tolerance. He does it anyway. He takes 3 deep breaths, hyperventilation, loading his blood with oxygen. He seals the muzzle of the .45 with his thumb to keep water out of the barrel. He clips his flashlight to his shirt, knowing it will be useless underwater, but wanting it immediately available when he surfaces. And he slides forward into the water. The water is warm, body temperature almost. It closes over his head, and the world becomes the inside of his skull. He can see nothing. He can hear nothing except the hammering of his own heart, amplified by the water into a percussion that fills his entire body. He pulls himself forward with his elbows, the walls of the tunnel pressing against him on all sides, the ceiling inches above his back, the floor inches below his chest. He counts. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. The tunnel must surface. Every water trap has an exit. The laws of physics and the needs of the tunnel builders demand it. Air must flow. People must pass. The water trap is a barrier, not a wall. 8 seconds. 10 seconds. His lungs are beginning to insist. The animal part of his brain, the part that evolved to keep him alive in situations exactly like this, is sending increasingly urgent messages. Breathe. Surface. Get out. 12 seconds. His free hand breaks the surface. Air. He pushes up and his face clears the water, and he gasps, a sound that echoes down the tunnel like a shout. And for 5 seconds, he does not care about noise discipline or the enemy or anything except the air that is filling his lungs. He is through. The passage continues on the other side, dry, angled slightly upward. He blinks the water from his eyes and turns on his flashlight, and finds himself staring at the muzzle of a Tokarev pistol. The shot comes before thought, before analysis. Before the brain has time to construct the sentence, there is a man with a gun. The body acts. Crenshaw's .45 comes up and fires in the same motion that his head turns, and the sound is the end of the world in a space this small. The Tokarev fires simultaneously. The muzzle flash fills the tunnel with a white light so bright it leaves an afterimage on Crenshaw's retinas that will last for hours.
The round passes his left ear close enough to feel the pressure wave, close enough to hear the supersonic crack separate from the sound of the shot, and buries itself in the wall behind him. Crenshaw's round does not miss. The .45 caliber bullet, 230 grains of copper-jacketed lead, moving at 830 feet per second, hits the NVA defender in the upper chest at a range of 4 feet. The energy transfer in a confined space is catastrophic. The man is thrown backward into the passage behind him and does not move again. Silence. Or what passes for silence when your eardrums are ringing so badly that all sound has been replaced by a high-pitched whine that seems to emanate from inside your skull. Crenshaw lies in the passage, the water trap behind him, the dead man ahead of him, and breathes. His hands are shaking. His whole body is shaking. 4 feet. 4 feet between him and the man who tried to kill him. If the Tokarev had been aimed 2 inches to the right, the bullet would have entered his left eye, and Crenshaw would be dead in a tunnel in Vietnam, and his mother would receive a telegram and a folded flag, and no explanation that would ever make sense. He waits, listens through the ringing. If there is a second defender, they will come now, drawn by the shots. He aims the .45 down the passage and waits. No one comes. He crawls forward, past the dead man. He does not look at the man's face. He has learned not to look at faces. The faces are too young, always, on both sides. And the youth of the dead is a weight that accumulates in a place Crenshaw has decided not to examine. Behind the water trap, Rourke heard the shots. 2 shots, almost simultaneous. The sound transmitted through the water and the earth with a clarity that made them sound like they happened inside his own body. He is alone. On the wrong side of the water trap, in a passage he has only been in once, with a dead silence ahead of him that could mean anything. His sergeant is on the other side. His sergeant may be dead on the other side. The decision takes him 2 seconds. He takes 3 breaths, seals his pistol, and goes into the water. 12 seconds of blackness and pressure, and the certain knowledge that he is crawling towards something terrible. And then his hand breaks the surface, and he gasps, and his flashlight finds Crenshaw alive, crouched in the passage, aiming his .45 at the darkness ahead with the expression of a man who has just killed someone and is prepared to do it again. "Sergeant," Rourke whispers. "Clear," Crenshaw says. His voice is flat, toneless. The voice of a man operating on a level below emotion. "1 defender, neutralized. Stay behind me." Rourke's flashlight finds the dead NVA soldier. He looks. He cannot help it. His first time seeing a man killed by a bullet at close range in a space the size of a coffin. The reality of it is nothing like the training films. The reality is meat and blood, and the particular emptiness of a face that was alive 3 minutes ago and is not alive now. He does not vomit. That is something. Later, above ground, in the dark, in his cot, he will shake for an hour. But not now. Now he follows his sergeant into the dark. 30 meters past the water trap, they find what the defender was protecting. A second communications room, larger than the first, with a full map table and a bank of field telephones connected to wire bundles that disappear into the walls in every direction. And on the table, weighted down with a stone, a sheaf of documents in a leather folder embossed with a star. Crenshaw opens the folder. He cannot read Vietnamese, but he recognizes military documents. Order of battle, unit designations, supply manifests, schedules, movement orders with dates and grid coordinates. This is not a company's paperwork. This is a regiment. He secures the folder inside his shirt. This is why men die underground. Not for the tunnels themselves, which can be rebuilt. For the paper. For the intelligence that tells you where the enemy is going and what he plans to do when he gets there.
While Crenshaw and Rourke push deeper into the second level, Corporal Pete Skelton and his team are clearing the northeast branch on the first level. Skelton moves through the first level passage with the economical grace of a man who has done this many times. The northeast branch is narrower than the main passages, less finished. A secondary route, perhaps an escape tunnel, perhaps a connector to another section of the complex that has not yet been discovered. He has been underground for 2 hours. The passage has yielded 3 chambers, all empty, all small. Storage rooms, probably. One contained empty wooden crates with Chinese characters stenciled on the lids. Ammunition crates. The ammunition is gone, moved deeper, or moved out entirely. At the end of the northeast branch, 60 meters from the junction, the passage makes a sharp turn to the south and begins to descend. Another access point to the second level. Skelton notes it, marks it on his mental map. He is about to turn back when he hears something. Breathing, not his own. He freezes. The flashlight beam is pointed at the bend in the passage, illuminating the smooth clay wall at the turning point. Beyond the bend, invisible, someone is breathing. Slow, controlled, the breathing of a man who is waiting. Skelton's training takes over. He flattens against the passage floor, reducing his profile. He extends the .45 around the bend, the muzzle first, using the corner of the wall as cover. In a tunnel, cover is everything. A corner of clay wall 4 inches thick can stop a pistol round. As long as he keeps his body behind the bend and only exposes the weapon, the advantage is his. He rounds the bend, fast, weapon first, flashlight following. The NVA defender fires from a concealed firing port, a small opening in the wall, barely 8 inches square, designed specifically for this purpose. The defender is not in the passage at all. He is in a separate chamber behind the wall, firing through a port that gives him a clear line of sight down the approach, while keeping his body completely protected. The round hits Skelton in the upper chest, left side, below the collarbone, above the heart. The impact in the confined space throws him backward, his flashlight spinning, his .45 discharging into the ceiling as his hand convulses. The passage goes dark. Skelton's flashlight has rolled away, its beam now pointing at the wall, illuminating nothing useful. He is on his back in a tunnel 24 inches wide, wounded, unable to turn, unable to see the man who shot him. He can feel the blood, warm, spreading across his chest, soaking into his fatigue shirt. The pain arrives 2 seconds after the impact, a white-hot flare that radiates from his chest to his shoulder, to his arm, to his fingers. His left hand goes numb. He cannot grip the pistol. He shifts it to his right hand. Behind him, his team member has heard the shots. There is shouting, muffled by the earth, and the sound of someone crawling toward him. But the passage is too narrow for 2 men abreast, and the firing port is still active. The defender fires again, the round cracking over Skelton's body and slamming into the clay wall. And anyone approaching from behind Skelton is in the same kill zone. Skelton lies in the tunnel and understands. The firing port is a perfect defense. The defender can fire indefinitely from his protected position. Anyone in the passage is exposed. The only way to neutralize the port is to get close enough to put a round through the 8-inch opening. And to do that,
You have to crawl into the field of fire. He tries. He raises the .45 toward the firing port, aiming by the muzzle flash of the defender's weapon, and fires twice. The rounds hit the wall around the port, throwing chips of clay, but do not penetrate the opening. The defender fires back, and the round hits the earth beside Skelton's head, and he flinches and drops the pistol. The blood loss is accelerating. He can feel it in the lightheadedness, the strange floating sensation that comes when the body is running out of the fluid it needs to function. His chest is wet. The earth beneath him is wet. His vision, what little of it the darkness allows, is narrowing. Specialist Jimenez, Skelton's team member, reaches him from behind. He grabs Skelton's boots and begins pulling him backward, away from the firing port, dragging him through the narrow passage with the desperate strength of a man who knows his friend is dying. The defender fires twice more as Skelton is dragged away. Both rounds miss, embedding in the clay walls, but the sound of them passing is very close. They pull Skelton back to the junction room. Jimenez applies pressure to the wound. Crenshaw's commo wire carries 3 rapid tugs to the surface. Emergency. Medic needed underground. But the passage is too narrow to bring Doc down to this level quickly, and the wound is too deep for field pressure to control, and the blood continues to flow, and Skelton's face in the flashlight beam is the color of candle wax. He dies at 11:14. In the junction room on the first level, surrounded by smooth clay walls that were built to shelter men from bombs, and that could not shelter him from a bullet. He is 22 years old. He is from Texas. The tunnel is too narrow to carry his body out, and they live in there, in the dark, with his Bible in his breast pocket that was not his but preacher's, pressed there by preacher's hands before the operation as a blessing and a ward. The tunnel team is quiet after that. 2 men dead in 2 days, Taggart above ground, Skelton below. The mathematics of the war beneath the war, where the numbers are always small and always personal.
Crenshaw surfaces at 1200 hours. The sunlight is merciless, and he stands at the shaft entrance with his eyes squinted nearly shut, breathing the open air, letting the heat of the surface replace the heat of the tunnels. 2 different kinds of heat. The tunnel heat is wet, close, intimate. The surface heat is dry, vast, impersonal. He prefers neither. He has forgotten what comfort feels like. Haldane is waiting for him. The lieutenant's face tells Crenshaw everything before a word is spoken. Something has happened above ground while he was below. Taggart, Haldane says. Crenshaw does not move. He stands perfectly still, the way a man stands when he is absorbing a blow that he saw coming but could not dodge. Punji pit, secondary exit on the east side of the tree line, femoral artery. Doc could not stop it. When? 09:42. 3 hours ago. 3 hours during which Crenshaw was underground, pushing through a water trap, killing a man at 4 feet, recovering intelligence documents, while Taggart was bleeding to death in a hole in the ground above him. The mathematics are obscene. 2 holes in the ground, 2 men. 1 survived, 1 did not. And Skelton? Haldane's face changes. What about Skelton? Crenshaw realizes Haldane does not know yet. He tells him. The firing port. The ambush in the northeast branch. Skelton's body still in the junction room on the first level. Haldane absorbs it with the controlled stillness of a man who is adding numbers to a column he did not want to start. 2 dead.
2 men from his platoon, dead on the second day of a 3-day operation. He has written 0 letters home. By tonight, he will have written 2. Division wants us to continue, Haldane says. It is not an order. It is a statement of fact delivered with enough space around it for Crenshaw to respond. I know. I can pull the plug, Crenshaw, right now. Gas the complex, blow it, and call it done. The maps you recovered are
enough to justify the operation. Crenshaw is quiet. He looks at the tunnel entrance, the dark shaft dropping into the earth, the passage that leads to passages that lead to deeper passages, and somewhere at the bottom, on the 3rd level, a command bunker that Bùi Minh says will contain documents worth more than anything they have found so far. He thinks about Taggart, about Skelton, about the Tokarev that missed his eye by 2 inches, about the mathematical certainty that the 3rd level will be more dangerous than the 2nd, because each level is more dangerous than the one above it, and the men down there have been listening to the Americans kill their comrades and have had hours to prepare. 1 more day, Crenshaw says. The 3rd level, the command bunker, then we blow it. Haldane looks at him for a long time. Your call, but I want to be clear. If you go down tomorrow, I have acetylene and C4 standing by. Any sign of trouble, I gas the entire complex and bring down every entrance. Your team gets 1 hour on the 3rd level. Then you are out, whether you are done or not. Understood. The afternoon passes in the particular silence that follows death. The team does not speak about Taggart or Skelton. They do not need to. The absence speaks for itself. The cot where Skelton slept is empty. The position where Taggart stood watch is manned by a Bravo Company soldier who does not know the ground the way Taggart knew it. Preacher sits on his cot and reads his Bible. He has taken a second Bible from his pack, the spare he always carries, because his first Bible is with Skelton. He reads Psalm 39. I said I will watch my ways and keep my tongue from sin. I will put a muzzle on my mouth while in the presence of the wicked. He does not read aloud. He mouths the words silently, his lips moving with the cadence of a man who has committed the text to memory and reads the physical pages only as a form of contact, the way a man touches a photograph of someone he loves. The Bible is not information to Preacher. It is presence. Doc Restrepo sits outside the hooch and writes letters. 2 letters. 1 to Taggart's mother in Wichita, Kansas. 1 to Skelton's parents in Amarillo, Texas. He is not the commanding officer. The official notification will come from Haldane. But Doc writes his own letters to the families of men who die under his care, because he was the last person who tried to save their lives, and he feels the families deserve to hear from that person. He does not write about the details. He does not describe the punji stakes or the firing port or the blood. He writes that their son was brave, that he did not suffer long, that he was among friends when he died. These things are partly true and partly not, but the distinction does not matter. The letters are not for truth. They are for mercy. Rourke sits alone at the edge of the perimeter, staring at the tree line. He has not spoken since surfacing. His red hair is stiff with dried clay. His fatigues are dark with sweat and tunnel mud, and his hands are still shaking, though less now. A fine tremor rather than a visible shake. He killed no one today. He saw no one die. But he was 10 meters behind Crenshaw when Crenshaw killed the NVA defender, and he saw the body in the flashlight's beam, and the image has settled into a part of his brain where it will live for the rest of his life. He is 19 years old. He has been underground twice. He will go underground again
tomorrow. Crenshaw sits with Bùi Minh at the far end of the perimeter, studying the maps recovered from the second level. The maps are spread on the ground between them, weighted with stones, and Bùi Minh translates the annotations, while Crenshaw builds a three-dimensional picture of the complex in his mind. The third level access is here, Bùi Minh says, pointing to a location on the map marked with a downward arrow. South end of the second level, past the communications room, there will be a shaft, deeper than the one between the first and second levels, perhaps 6 meters. And the water trap? There will be another, longer probably. The water traps increase in length with each level. First level access had none. Second level, the one you passed through, was about 4 meters submerged. The third level water trap could be 6 to 8 meters. Crenshaw absorbs this. 8 meters of submerged tunnel, 25 feet of crawling underwater in total darkness. The physical challenge is survivable. The psychological challenge is something else. What is the command bunker like? Bùi Minh considers. Larger than anything on the first or second levels. Reinforced. The ceiling will be supported with timber or bamboo. The walls may be finished with bamboo matting. There will be a table, probably a proper table, not a crate. Shelving for documents, a map board, and communication lines to every level, every section. It is the heart of the complex. And the engineer, Nguyen Van Phan, will he be there? Bùi Minh is quiet for a long moment. The shadows under his eyes are deeper today. The weight of what they are doing, what he specifically is doing by helping Americans destroy what his own people built, shows in the lines of his face and the stillness of his hands. If this is his complex, and I believe it is, then he knows we are here. He has known since the first day. He would have evacuated the first level before we arrived. He would have positioned defenders on the second level to slow us. And he would be on the third level now, preparing. Preparing what? Preparing to destroy the complex rather than let us take it. Nguyen Van Phan does not surrender his tunnels. He has a reputation. When the French cleared tunnels in Coochie in the 50s, he collapsed 3 complexes on the French soldiers inside them. He will have charges set. If he decides the intelligence value of the command bunker is compromised, he will bring down the third level and everyone on it. The implications of this settle between them like dust. But the documents, Crenshaw says, if the command bunker contains what you think it contains, then it is worth the risk. The documents in a regimental command bunker of this complexity could change the course of operations in this sector for months. Unit dispositions, supply routes, attack schedules, communication protocols. Everything the Americans have been trying to learn about NVA operations in the Iron Triangle. Is it worth dying for? Bùi Minh looks at him with an expression that is both old and tired, and perfectly calm. That is not a question I can answer for you, Sergeant. I have already decided it is worth dying for. I decided that when I crossed over. Night. The second night. Different from the first. The first night had the restless energy of anticipation. This night has the weight of grief. Crenshaw lies on his cot and does not close his eyes. He stares at the tin roof and counts the rivets. There are 47 rivets in his section of the roof. He has counted them before. He will count them again. Counting is a form of meditation for men who do not meditate, a way to occupy the surface of the mind while the deeper parts process things that cannot be processed directly. 2 men dead, Taggart and Skelton. Men he knew, men he was responsible for,
Men who trusted his judgment and followed his orders into a place that killed them. The responsibility sits on his chest like a physical weight. It does not matter that Taggart was killed by a punji pit above ground, outside Crenshaw's area of operation. It does not matter that Skelton was killed on a separate clearance mission that Crenshaw assigned. The deaths belong to the team leader. All of them. Always. He thinks about his father, the Benham mine, 1954, a methane explosion that killed 3 men in the number 2 heading, including a man named Garfield Combs, who had worked beside his father every day for 11 years. His father came home that night covered in rock dust and blood, and he sat at the kitchen table and drank coffee, and did not speak until Crenshaw's mother put her hand on his shoulder and said, "It is not your fault." His father looked at her and said, "It is always your fault when you are there and they are not." Crenshaw understands that now, not as a child understands a parent's words, repeating them without comprehension. He understands it with his body, with the weight on his chest, with the 47 rivets in the ceiling that he counts and counts and counts. He closes his eyes. Tomorrow, the 3rd level, the deepest place, the command bunker. 1 hour. Then they blow the complex and leave, and the earth will close over the tunnels and the bodies. And Coochie will look the same as it always looks. Flat, green, peaceful, and full of the dead. Across the hooch, Rourke's breathing is irregular. The kid is not sleeping. He is lying awake, processing, the way all soldiers process their first encounter with violent death, which is to say, badly and in silence. Crenshaw considers speaking to him, offering something. What, he does not know. Comfort is not a resource he carries. Understanding, perhaps. The understanding that what Rourke is feeling is normal and will not kill him, and will become, in time, a kind of background noise that never fully goes away, but no longer prevents function. He does not speak. There are things that words cannot reach, and Rourke's silence tonight is one of them. The kid will either find his way through it, or he will not. Crenshaw found his way through his own version of it in the Iadrang Valley, in a foxhole, holding the hand of a man whose name he has never spoken aloud since. There was no comfort then. There was only the hand, and the night, and the morning after. He breathes. 4 in. Hold 4. 4 out. 47 rivets. 4 in. Hold 4. 4 out. The 3rd morning. 0500. The team assembles at the shaft entrance in the gray pre-dawn light. Crenshaw, Preacher, Rourke, Doc, Bùi Minh. 5 men. Yesterday there were 7 on the operational roster. The subtraction is visible in the spacing, the gaps where men used to stand. Haldane is there. He has not slept either. The letters to Taggart's and Skelton's families are sealed, addressed, and in the mailbag. He has written 2 letters, and he looks like a man who has aged 5 years in the writing. 1 hour, Haldane says. After that, I gas the complex. No exceptions. No extensions. 1 hour from the time you reach the 3rd level. Crenshaw nods. The engineers have acetylene tanks ready. 4 tunnel entrances rigged with C4 charges for simultaneous detonation. Once I give the order, the complex comes down. All of it. If you are not out, I will delay as long as I can. But if you are not out within 90 minutes of entering the 3rd level, I am sealing the tunnels. It is fair. It is necessary.
An open tunnel complex that has killed 2 Americans is a liability that increases with every hour. The intelligence value must be weighed against the cost, and the cost has already been too high. "We will be out," Crenshaw says. He says it as fact, not hope. If he allows hope into the equation, the uncertainty that comes with it will slow him underground, and underground, slowness kills. He looks at his team. Preacher, with his spare Bible in his breast pocket and his demolitions bag against his stomach. Rourke, pale and steady, his freckles standing out like copper coins against his white skin. Doc, who will remain on the 2nd level as a medical relay, because the 3rd level passages may be too narrow for his kit. Bùi Minh, who will guide them to the command bunker and who carries the memory of the man who built it. "Let us go," Crenshaw says. For the last time in this complex, he goes into the earth. They move fast through the 1st level. Known territory. Mapped, cleared, safe as anything underground can be called safe. Past the sleeping chambers, past the kitchen, past the hospital where blood still stains the bamboo beds. Through the junction room where Skelton's body lies covered with a poncho liner that Preacher placed over him yesterday afternoon. Preacher pauses at Skelton's body. He places his hand on the poncho liner, over the chest, where his Bible rests on the dead man's heart. His lips move. Then he continues, following Crenshaw down through the trapdoor to the 2nd level. The 2nd level is as they left it. The water trap lies ahead, still and dark, a barrier of black water between the known and the unknown. Crenshaw does not hesitate. He takes his 3 breaths, seals his pistol, and goes under. 12 seconds of submersion, the tunnel walls pressing from all sides, the pressure in his lungs building, and then the surface on the other side and the passage. Continuing south. He passes the place where he killed the NVA defender yesterday. The body has been removed. Someone came up from below and took their dead. The blood remains, a dark stain on the clay floor that has already been absorbed into the earth. They are watching. They know exactly where we are. Rourke comes through the water trap. Then Preacher, who fits through the flooded section only because he has exhaled every molecule of air in his lungs and compressed his broad shoulders into a configuration that the human body was not designed to achieve. He surfaces gasping, his face gray, his hands trembling on his pistol. Bùi Minh comes last. He passes through the water trap with the ease of a man walking through a doorway. The tunnels are his native element. He was born for this darkness the way a fish is born for water. At the southern end of the 2nd level, past the communications room where Crenshaw recovered the maps, the passage descends again. Steeper this time. Angle of the decline is perhaps 20 degrees, and the walls are damp, glistening with condensation that catches the flashlight beam and makes the clay look alive. And at the bottom of the decline, the 2nd water trap. Bùi Minh crouches beside Crenshaw at the water's edge. He touches the surface, testing the temperature, the depth, the current. His hand disappears into the water up to his wrist. Longer than the first, he says. The water is deeper here. The tunnel drops below the passage on the other side. How long? Bùi Minh is quiet for a moment. In the complexes I built, the 3rd level water trap was 7 meters, 23 feet, submerged for the entire length. Crenshaw does the calculation. At crawling speed, fully submerged, 7 meters is approximately 20 to 25 seconds. His maximum breath hold in a calm state is about 40 seconds. Add the exertion of pulling himself through a flooded tunnel, the panic response that narrows the breath, and the margin shrinks to something uncomfortably thin. Any air pockets? Perhaps. The tunnels are not perfectly level. High points may trap air, but you cannot count on it. Crenshaw looks at Rourke. The kid's face is a study in controlled fear. His jaw is clenched, his nostrils flared, his eyes fixed on the water. He has been through one water trap. This one is longer. The darkness on the other side is deeper. "Rourke, you do not have to come." The kid looks at him. Something moves behind his eyes. Not courage exactly. Something harder than courage. Something that recognizes the choice and makes it anyway. Not because it is brave, but because the alternative, the turning back, the admitting that the darkness has won, is worse than whatever waits on the other side. "I am with you, Sergeant." Crenshaw nods. That is all there is to say. He hyperventilates. 3 deep breaths, loading his blood with oxygen. He seals the .45. He adjusts his flashlight. He touches the commo wire, making sure it will pay out freely behind him. Then he slides forward into the water, and the world disappears. The water is darker than the first trap, warmer. The tunnel is tighter, the walls closer, and he cannot extend his arms fully ahead of him. He pulls himself forward with his fingertips dug into the clay floor, his body scraping the ceiling, his lungs holding, counting. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. The passage shows no sign of rising. The water fills every inch of space. His chest is beginning to tighten. The first warning. The body politely informing him that the oxygen is running out, and that breathing would be advisable at his earliest convenience. 20 seconds. His fingertips find a change in the floor. The clay angles upward. A rise. He pulls harder, faster, his lungs screaming now, the polite warning replaced by a klaxon, and his hand breaks the surface, and he pushes up and gasps, and the air is thick and wet and stale, and it is the most beautiful thing he has ever breathed. He is on the 3rd level. The 3rd level is different. He knows it immediately, the way you know when you have entered a new kind of place, a place with different rules. The air is heavier, not just humid, but thick, almost syrupy, carrying the weight of the earth above and the absence of circulation that comes from being this deep underground. His flashlight beam seems dimmer here, though the batteries are fresh. It is the darkness itself, denser, more substantial, as if the darkness at this depth has a physical quality that absorbs light. The passage is reinforced. Bamboo supports line the walls and ceiling at regular intervals, and the floor is smoother, worn by more foot traffic than the upper levels. This is the main artery of the 3rd level, the central corridor that connects the command center to everything else. He waits for the others. Rourke comes through the water trap after what feels like an eternity but is probably 30 seconds, surfacing with a gasp and a choking cough that he smothers against his sleeve. Preacher follows, his face twisted with the effort of forcing his broad body through the flooded section, his gasps ragged and desperate when he breaks the surface. Bùi Minh surfaces last, calm, breathing normally, as if the 25 seconds of submersion in total darkness were nothing more than a minor inconvenience. They are 4 men on the 3rd level of an NVA tunnel complex. 1 hour to find the command bunker, exploit the documents, and get out before Haldane gasses the system and brings it down. Bùi Minh moves forward. Here, on the deepest level, his knowledge is indispensable. He reads the construction the way Crenshaw reads the earth in a mine. The direction of the bamboo supports tells him which way the builders intended traffic to flow. The spacing of the supports tells him the size of the chamber ahead. The marks on the walls, The directional carvings that would be invisible to American eyes tell him where the command bunker lies. South, he says.
Whispers. 30 meters, maybe 40. They move south. The passage twists twice, each bend revealing more of the same reinforced corridor, and Crenshaw notes the craftsmanship with the grudging respect of a man who builds things and can recognize when someone else builds things well. The tunnels on the third level are not dug by laborers. They are engineered by someone who understands structure, load-bearing, airflow, and the particular demands of building a fortress in the earth. Win Van Fan, Bùi Minh's student. The man who built these tunnels the way a cathedral builder builds a cathedral, with skill and devotion, and the knowledge that the thing being built is meant to outlast the builder. 20 meters in, Crenshaw's bayonet probe finds something wrong. The floor ahead feels different. Not the subtle give of a punji trap or a covered pit. Something harder. His probe strikes a surface that rings faintly, a metallic sound, thin and high, like tapping a tuning fork against stone. He freezes, lowers his flashlight to the floor, scrapes away a thin layer of loose earth with the K-bar. A mine. A Soviet PMN anti-personnel mine, circular, about 4 inches in diameter, buried flush with the tunnel floor and covered with a 1/4 inch of earth. The pressure plate is exposed now, dull green against the darker clay, and it takes about 14 pounds of pressure to activate. A hand, pressed flat against the floor while crawling, would provide exactly that. Crenshaw's heart rate, which has been elevated since the water trap, now reaches a level that would concern a cardiologist. He can feel it in his neck, his wrists, his temples. The mine is 6 inches from his left hand. He marks it, carefully, with a strip of cloth placed on the clay beside the mine, visible in the flashlight. He edges past it, distributing his weight across his elbows and knees, reducing the pressure on any single point of the floor. Behind him, he whispers to Rourke. Mine, left side, cloth marker, stay right. Rourke edges past the mine. His flashlight illuminates the exposed pressure plate, and he stares at it the way a man stares at a snake that has chosen not to strike. Then he is past it and moving forward, and the mine remains behind them, waiting for the next person who does not know it is there. 30 meters. Bùi Minh's estimate was precise. The corridor opens into a chamber that is larger than anything they have encountered in the entire complex. 8 feet wide, 10 feet long. The ceiling, supported by thick bamboo beams, is high enough for a man to stand upright. The command bunker. Crenshaw stands for the first time in what feels like hours. His knees crack. His back aches. The relief of standing upright in a space that allows it is so overwhelming that for a moment he cannot process what his flashlight is showing him. Then his eyes adjust to the scale of the room, and he begins to understand what they have found. A table in the center of the room. Not an ammunition crate, not a bamboo platform. A proper wooden table. The kind of table a staff officer sits behind. Smooth and level, and large enough to spread a map. On the table, a kerosene lamp, its glass chimney smoked with use. A fountain pen, the nib dried with ink. A ceramic cup, empty, but with a ring of tea residue at the bottom. On the walls, shelving. Bamboo shelves holding folders, binders, notebooks, rolled maps secured with rubber bands. Dozens of documents, hundreds of pages, an entire operational library for a regimental headquarters, stored 30 feet underground in a room the size of a large closet. A map board on the far wall. A large-scale map of the Iron Triangle and surrounding areas, annotated in multiple colors of ink, showing positions, routes, timelines, unit designations, symbols that military intelligence analysts would spend weeks decoding. A complete picture of NVA operations in this sector, pinned to a wall in the dark, updated by hand by officers who worked by lamplight in a room where the air was almost too thick to breathe. Crenshaw stares at it. He has been underground for more than 2 years of his life, in aggregate, and he has never seen anything like this. This is not a tunnel. This is a headquarters. The men who worked here, who planned operations and moved units and managed supply lines from this bamboo table in the earth, were conducting a war from a place no bomb could reach and no aircraft could see. He begins to gather the documents. Every folder, every notebook, every map. He and Bùi Minh work together, packing the papers into waterproof bags that will survive the water trap. Rourke stands guard at the entrance, his .45 aimed down the corridor, listening for the sound that means their time is up. Preacher examines the room methodically. Under the table, he finds a steel box. He opens it carefully, checking for traps. Inside, a Tokarev TT-33 pistol, a compass, a set of binoculars, and a leather journal filled with dense Vietnamese script. An officer's personal kit. Recently set aside, not abandoned. Set aside the way you set your bag by the door when you intend to come back. Bùi Minh picks up the journal. He opens it, reads the first page. His face changes. This is Nguyen Van Phan's personal diary. He does not elaborate. He places the diary in the waterproof bag with the other documents. Whatever the diary contains, whatever record the engineer kept of his years building underground fortresses and defending them against the French and now the Americans, it will be read by intelligence analysts in air-conditioned offices who will never know what it cost to bring it up from the dark. The bamboo viper drops from the ceiling without warning. There is no sound. Snakes do not announce themselves. One moment Rourke is standing at the entrance with his .45 aimed down the corridor, and the next moment something is on his neck, something cold and muscular and alive, and the scream that comes out of him is not voluntary. It is the scream of every primate ancestor who ever encountered a snake in the dark and screamed because screaming was the only response the brain had available. He thrashes. The snake is on his neck and his shoulder, its body looping around his collar, its head near his jawline. He can feel its tongue on his skin, a flickering contact that carries no physical sensation except the absolute certainty that he is about to die. Bùi Minh is faster than the snake. His K-bar comes up and severs the body 6 inches behind the head, a single motion, precise and violent, and the snake falls in 2 pieces at Rourke's feet, the head still attached to a point section of body that writhes on the clay floor. Rourke's legs give out. He sits down heavily on the floor of the command bunker, his back against the bamboo shelving, his hands shaking, his breath coming in ragged gasps that fill the room with a sound like tearing cloth. "It did not bite you," Bùi Minh says. His voice is calm, factual. Bamboo viper, green. They place them in the tunnels deliberately, in alcoves, in ceiling cracks. The snake does not attack unless provoked. It fell. It was frightened. Crenshaw kneels beside Rourke. The kid is hyperventilating. His eyes are wide and unfocused, seeing something other than the command bunker, seeing the darkness itself. The accumulated weight of 3 days underground, 2 dead men, gunfire in enclosed spaces, punji pits and mines and water traps, and now a snake on his neck in a room 30 feet below the earth. "Rourke," Crenshaw says. His voice is quiet,
steady. The coal miner's voice. The voice his father used in the dark. "Rourke, look at me." The kid's eyes find Crenshaw's face. Focus returns in increments. The flashlight beam between them, harsh and green, throwing shadows that make them both look older than they are. Breathe. 4 in. Hold 4. 4 out. Rourke breathes. Ragged at first, then slower. 4 in. Hold 4. 4 out. The rhythm is a rope thrown to a drowning man, and he grabs it. The snake did not bite you. You are not hurt. We have what we came for. We are going back up. Do you understand? Yes, Sergeant. Can you move? A pause. Rourke tests his hands. They are shaking, but they grip the .45. They grip the flashlight. They function. I can move. Good. Stay behind me. We are leaving. They have 42 minutes left of their hour. Crenshaw gathers the last of the waterproof bags, 3 bags now, heavy with documents that will keep intelligence analysts busy for months. He takes one final look at the command bunker, the empty table, the kerosene lamp, the teacup with its ring of residue, a room where a man named Nguyen Van Phan sat and planned a war from underground, and where that man will not sit again because the room will not exist by tomorrow. Then a sound, not from the corridor behind them, from ahead, from beyond the command bunker, from a passage they have not explored, a section of the 3rd level that lies south of the command center. The sound is deliberate, rhythmic, metal on earth, digging, or collapsing. Bùi Minh's face changes. The calm evaporates, replaced by something Crenshaw has never seen in the Kit Carson Scout's expression: fear. He is sealing the passages, Bùi Minh says. He is bringing down the access points. We need to leave. Now.
The urgency in his voice is a physical force. Crenshaw does not question it. He has trusted Bùi Minh with his life for 7 months, and the trust has been repaid every time. They move, fast, for a tunnel. The corridor back to the water trap is 30 meters of crawling at a pace that tears skin from elbows and knees. Behind them, the sound continues. The metallic ringing of charges being set, the scraping of earth being loosened, the slow, methodical destruction of the passages that connect the 3rd level to the 2nd. Nguyen Van Phan is collapsing his own tunnels, sealing the complex rather than letting the Americans escape with his documents. The engineer is destroying his life's work to deny it to the enemy, and he is doing it while the enemy is still inside. They reach the water trap, the black water, still and waiting. Go, Crenshaw says. Rourke first, then Preacher, then Bùi Minh. I go last. Rourke does not hesitate. He breathes, seals his weapon, and goes under. 25 seconds of blackness. He surfaces on the other side with a scream that he turns into a gasp. Preacher follows. His broad shoulders barely fit, and the passage scrapes the demolitions bag against his chest, and for a terrible moment he is stuck, wedged between the ceiling and floor of a flooded tunnel. And then he wrenches free and pulls himself forward, and surfaces choking and retching on the 2nd level. Bùi Minh turns to go. And then, the explosion. The explosion is not loud. That is the first thing Crenshaw notices, and the wrongness of it, the quietness, tells him more than a detonation ever could. A loud explosion in a tunnel means distance. The sound has space to develop, to build the wavefront that hits you like a fist. A quiet explosion means close. So close that the overpressure arrives before the sound. A wall of compressed air that slams into him with the force of a car door and throws him sideways into the tunnel wall. Earth falls from the ceiling. Not a collapse, not yet,
but a rain of clay fragments and dust that fills the passage and turns the flashlight beam into a column of brown fog. The sound comes next, arriving late, a flat percussive thud that punches through his already damaged eardrums and replaces hearing with a high-pitched tone that rises and holds. Bùi Minh is beside him, pressed against the wall, his flashlight pointed back the way they came. The passage behind them, the corridor that led from the command bunker to the water trap, is obscured by dust. Through the dust, a sound, settling. The slow, grinding collapse of earth, filling a space that was empty a moment ago. The charges have blown. Nguyen Van Phan has collapsed the passage between the command bunker and the water trap. The way back is sealed. Crenshaw processes this with the clinical detachment that tunnel experience provides. Panic is a biological response. It is useful in open spaces where running is an option. Underground, where running is not an option and the walls are 2 feet apart and the air is already thin, panic is simply a faster way to die. He acknowledges the fear. He sets it aside. He begins to think. The water trap is ahead of them, not behind them. The explosion collapsed the corridor behind the water trap, between the trap and the command bunker. They are on the water trap side. The trap itself may still be passable. The question is whether the explosion has destabilized the surrounding earth enough to collapse the flooded section. There is one way to find out. Crenshaw moves to the water trap. He shines his flashlight into the water. The surface is disturbed, rippling from the concussion wave, and the water is murky with suspended clay. Visibility is 0. Even if the passage is intact, he will be crawling through water he cannot see through, in a tunnel that may or may not have partially collapsed. He looks at Bùi Minh. The Kit Carson Scout is examining the walls around the water trap, running his hands along the clay, pressing, testing. The structure here is intact, Bùi Minh says. The charge was set further south behind the command bunker. This section may be undamaged. Maybe. Bùi Minh meets his eyes. There is no certainty underground. You know this. Crenshaw does know this. He has always known this. Certainty is a surface luxury, a product of sunlight and open air, and the ability to see what is ahead of you. Underground, you operate on probability and faith, and the distinction between the two is thinner than the monofilament on a booby trap wire. He prepares to enter the water trap. 3 breaths. Seal the 45. Flashlight clipped tight. Commo wire trailing behind. The water is warm and opaque, and he slides into it, and the world becomes darkness and pressure, and the counted seconds of his breath. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. The tunnel is intact. He can feel the walls, smooth and solid, the ceiling pressing against his back. The clay has not shifted. The water trap survived the explosion. 15 seconds. 20 seconds. His lungs are beginning their familiar protest, but the passage is rising. He can feel the angle change, and then his hand breaks the surface, and he gasps, and he is through, on the 2nd level, alive. He tugs the commo wire. 1 tug. Come through. Bùi Minh enters the water trap. 20 seconds of silence while Crenshaw waits on the other side, counting, his flashlight aimed at the water's surface, waiting for the hand to appear, the head to surface, the gasp of air. Bùi Minh surfaces, calm, breathing steadily, as if the flooded passage between a collapsed tunnel and an uncertain future or simply a corridor he has walked 1,000 times, which, in a sense, it is. They are on the second level. The passage north leads to the first level, to the shaft, to the surface. They know the way, but the second level is not safe. The NVA defenders who have been living in this complex know it better than any American, and they know that the charges have gone off, and they know that the Americans are trying to escape. Crenshaw and Bùi Minh move north through the second level. The passages are familiar, but the context has changed. Yesterday, these tunnels were terrain to be explored. Today, they are an escape route through enemy-held territory, and every bend, every junction, every stretch of darkness could hold a man with a weapon. They reach the shaft between the second and first levels. The trapdoor is open. The shaft rises 12 feet to the junction room on the first level. Daylight feels impossibly close. Crenshaw climbs first, his elbows wedged against the shaft walls, his feet bracing against the clay, pushing himself upward in a motion that is half climbing and half crawling vertically. He emerges into the junction room and sweeps it with his flashlight. Clear. Skelton's body under the poncho liner. The 4 passages leading in 4 directions. The commo wire trailing from the surface shaft to the south. Everything as it was, but not the same. The air is different. There is a draft coming from the south passage, a current of air that was not there yesterday. The explosion on the third level has changed the airflow patterns of the entire complex. Passages that were sealed are now open. Passages that were open may now be sealed. The complex is breathing differently, and Crenshaw does not know what the new breaths mean. Bùi Minh climbs into the junction room. He pauses, nostrils flaring, reading the air the way Crenshaw reads it. His expression tightens. The explosions have opened new connections between levels. The NVA will use them. They can move through passages we have not mapped, passages that were sealed until the charges blew them open. They could be anywhere in the complex now. Then we move fast. The passage north from the junction room leads to the first level main corridor, and from there, the shaft to the surface. 200 meters. They covered it in 20 minutes on the first day when they were exploring. Now they cover it in 10, moving at a pace that sacrifices silence for speed. Their flashlight beams bouncing off the walls, their elbows and knees churning the earth. The commo wire paying out behind them in a trail that says, "We were here. We came through. We survived." They reached the entry shaft. The circle of daylight above is the most beautiful thing Crenshaw has ever seen. Gray sky, cloud-filtered, the pale light of a Vietnam afternoon. It fills the shaft from above like water fills a well, and Crenshaw stands at the bottom and looks up, and for a moment he cannot move, because the sight of the sky has overwhelmed the part of his brain that manages motor function. Bùi Minh touches his shoulder. "Sergeant, we must go." Crenshaw climbs, his hands on the shaft walls, his boots finding purchase in the clay, and then the lip of the shaft, and then the surface, and then he is out, lying on the ground, his face pressed against the laterite earth that he has never been so grateful to feel against his skin. Bùi Minh climbs out behind him. He stands in the daylight and tilts his face toward the sky and closes his eyes. Whatever he is feeling, whatever complex knot of relief and grief and memory the emergence from the tunnels has created, he keeps it behind his eyelids and shares none of it. Haldane is running toward them. Doc is behind him with the medical kit. Soldiers from the perimeter are converging.
The tunnel entrance is suddenly surrounded by men who have been waiting above ground for 3 hours, imagining the worst, hearing the muffled thump of the explosion, and knowing that something has gone wrong below. "Report," Haldane says. His voice is sharp with the particular tension of a commander who has been unable to help. "Third level reached and cleared," Crenshaw says. He is still lying on the ground, speaking to the sky. "Command bunker located. Documents recovered. 3 bags of intelligence material. The NVA blew the access passages while we were extracting. The 3rd level corridor is collapsed. Rourke and Preacher are somewhere on the 2nd level or above. They went through the water trap before the charges blew." Haldane's face registers relief and then immediate concern. "Rourke and Hayes are not with you. They crossed the water trap ahead of us. They should have reached the 1st level by now." "They have not reached the 1st level. They have not emerged from the tunnel. They are somewhere underground, in a complex that is partially collapsed and actively defended. And they are alone. Rourke and Preacher are on the 2nd level. They crossed the water trap 20 minutes ago, surfacing on the 2nd level in the passage north of the flooded section. They heard the explosion behind them. They felt the concussion wave, a pressure change that popped their ears and made the flashlight beams flicker. And then the passage behind them, the section south of the water trap, filled with the sound of settling earth. The access to the 3rd level was gone. Preacher put his hand on Rourke's shoulder, steadied him. The kid was breathing too fast, his flashlight bouncing with the tremors running through his body. Preacher did not speak. He simply held the kid's shoulder and waited until the breathing slowed. They moved north, through the 2nd level passage toward the shaft that leads up to the 1st level. Known territory, mapped, safe. But the complex has changed. The explosions on the 3rd level have opened passages that were sealed, and through those newly opened passages, men have come. NV. A soldiers rising from the depths of the damaged complex like water rising through cracks, finding their way through connections between levels that did not exist an hour ago. Preacher hears them first. Voices. Quiet, ahead and above, in the 1st level junction room. Vietnamese, spoken in the flat tones of men who are communicating tactical information. How many, he cannot tell. More than one. He stops Rourke with a hand signal. They crouch in the passage at the base of the shaft between the 2nd and 1st levels. Above them, in the junction room, enemy soldiers occupy the space that is their only route to the surface. Preacher is not a man who panics. He is a man who prays, and there is a difference, though from the outside they can look similar. He closes his eyes and his lips move, and whatever he says takes 3 seconds, and when he opens his eyes, they are clear and decided. He hands his demolitions bag to Rourke. He takes 1 block of C4 from the bag. A blasting cap, a 12-inch length of detonation cord. He crimps the blasting cap onto the det cord with his teeth, a practice that every demolitions instructor in the Army warns against, and every combat demolitions man does anyway, because there is no other tool available. He whispers to Rourke, "I am going to put a charge in the passage above us and detonate it. The blast will clear the junction room. When it goes off, you climb. Do not wait. Do not look. Climb and run for the entry shaft. What about you? I will be right behind you." Preacher climbs the shaft. He moves with the deliberate silence of a man who knows that the men above him will kill him if they hear him. The C4 is in his left hand. The blasting cap assembly is between his teeth. His right hand grips the clay wall of the shaft, pulling him upward 1 body length at a time. At the top of the shaft, He can see into the junction room through the trapdoor opening. 2 NVA soldiers crouched in the passage that leads north toward the entry shaft. They are facing away from him, looking toward the surface, toward the Americans who they know are waiting above ground. They do not know that Americans are also below them. Preacher places the C4 charge on the lip of the trapdoor. He presses the blasting cap into the soft explosive. The det cord hangs down the shaft, 12 inches, just enough to give him time to drop back. He pulls the detonation cord. The fuse ignites. He drops. The explosion fills the junction room with fire and pressure and shrapnel from the clay walls that fragments like ceramic. The 2 NVA soldiers are killed instantly. The blast wave channels down the shaft and hits Preacher as he falls, slamming him against the wall of the shaft, and he lands at the bottom in a heap, dazed, his ears bleeding, his demolitions bag scattered at his feet. "Go," he shouts at Rourke, or he tries to shout. His voice is a croak. His hearing is gone. He cannot tell if he is whispering or screaming. Rourke climbs. He goes up the shaft faster than he has ever moved in his life, fueled by terror and the desperate understanding that delay is death. He emerges into the junction room, which is filled with dust and the acrid smell of C4 explosive, and he does not look at what the blast has done to the room's previous occupants. He runs north, crawling at a speed that tears his fatigues and shreds the skin from his elbows, following the commo wire, following the passage he memorized on the first day, heading for the entry shaft and the daylight above. Behind him, Preacher climbs the shaft. Slower. His left arm is not working correctly. Something happened in the fall, a shoulder dislocation or a fracture. The pain, a distant signal, filtered through the adrenaline that is flooding his system. He reaches the junction room. He turns north. And behind him, from the south passage, from a section of the complex that should be empty but is not, a sound. Footsteps. Running. More NVA soldiers, drawn by the explosion, converging on the junction room through passages the Americans never mapped. Preacher does not look back. He crawls north, his one good arm pulling, his knees pushing, his body filling the passage from wall to wall. The footsteps behind him are getting closer, but he is in the passage now, the narrow passage, and the narrowness that terrifies most men is Preacher's salvation, because it allows only one man at a time, and the man behind him cannot fire around Preacher's body. He reaches the entry. Shaft. The circle of gray sky above. Rourke's face, looking down, shouting something Preacher cannot hear. He climbs. One-handed, his left arm hanging, his boots scraping the clay walls. Hands reach down from above and grab his fatigue shirt and pull. And then he is on the surface, lying on his back, staring at the sky, breathing air that tastes of freedom and cordite. 4 men on the surface. Crenshaw, Rourke, Preacher, Doc. Doc is working on Preacher's shoulder, assessing the injury, stabilizing the arm. Preacher's face is gray with pain, but his eyes are open and clear, and his lips are moving in what Doc recognizes as the 23rd Psalm. Bùi Minh is not with them. Crenshaw looks around. He counts. He counts again. 4 men on the surface. Haldane, the perimeter soldiers, Doc, Rourke, Preacher. 5 men from the tunnel team entered the complex this morning. 4 have emerged. 1 has not. "Where is Bùi Minh?" Crenshaw says. No one answers. No one has seen the Kit Carson Scout since he climbed out of the tunnel shaft behind Crenshaw. Crenshaw emerged. Haldane approached.
Doc approached, and in the confusion of the moment, the urgency of the report and the fear for Rourke and Preacher, no one noticed Bùi Minh move away. Crenshaw walks to the tunnel entrance and looks down. The shaft is empty. The passage below is empty. Bùi Minh is not in the first level. He understands. Bùi Minh went back in, while Crenshaw was reporting to Haldane, while Doc was treating Preacher, while Rourke was sitting on the ground, shaking. The Kit Carson Scout walked to the tunnel entrance and went back underground. Back to the complex he helped build. Back to the tunnels he knows the way a man knows the rooms of his own house. Back into the dark. Crenshaw does not know why. He will never know with certainty. Perhaps Bùi Minh went back for Preacher and Rourke, not knowing they had already found another way out. Perhaps he went back because he knew the NVA were using newly opened passages and wanted to intercept them. Perhaps he went back because the tunnels were where he belonged, where he had always belonged, on both sides of the war. Or perhaps he went back because Nguyen Van Phan was still down there, the student he had trained, the engineer whose work he had been helping Americans destroy. Perhaps, in the end, the tunnels brought them back together, the teacher and the student, in the dark, where the war had started for both of them. 3 minutes after Bùi Minh re-entered the tunnel, a muffled explosion echoes from underground. Then a second. Then a third. The ground trembles. Dust rises from the shaft entrance and from the ventilation shafts scattered through the tree line. And then silence. Crenshaw stands at the tunnel entrance and listens. The silence is absolute. Not the living silence of an occupied tunnel, where the earth settles and the water drips and the air moves. The dead silence of a collapsed space, where there is no air to move and nothing left to settle. Bùi Minh does not emerge. He will not emerge. Whatever happened in the tunnels after he went back, whatever confrontation or sacrifice or choice the darkness held, it ended there, underground, in the complex he helped build and helped destroy. Crenshaw stands at the entrance for a long time. Then he turns away and walks to the command post and tells Haldane to blow the rest of the complex. The demolition begins at 1400 hours. The combat engineers work with the efficient, impersonal competence of men who destroy things for a living. They pump acetylene gas into every tunnel entrance, every ventilation shaft, every opening that the survey has identified. The gas is heavier than air. It sinks through the passages, filling the chambers, displacing the oxygen, turning the underground complex into a bomb that is waiting for a spark. Then the spark. Electrically detonated charges at each entrance, wired to a single blasting machine at the command post. Haldane looks at Crenshaw. Crenshaw nods. Haldane turns the handle. The ground moves. Not like an earthquake, not a shaking, a settling, a subsidence, as if the earth has exhaled and found itself lighter. The explosions are muffled by the depth, the sound traveling through clay and laterite rather than air, arriving at the surface as a series of dull thumps that feel more than they sound. Dust geysers from the ventilation shafts. Smoke, gray and brown, rises from the tree line in lazy columns that drift east on the afternoon breeze. Then the collapses begin. Sections of the ground sink. 1 meter here, 2 meters there. The surface soil cracking and falling inward as the tunnels beneath give way. The clay ceilings that held for years surrendering to the combined force of explosives and gravity and the weight of the earth above. A paddy dike collapses in a long, slow slump. A tree tilts and falls as the ground beneath its roots opens like a mouth. The process takes about 15 minutes. When it is done, the tree line looks like it has been struck by a slow-motion bomb. Depressions and sinkholes dot the landscape. The ground is cracked and broken. Dust hangs in the air like fog. 3 levels of tunnels, built over 5 years by hundreds of men, destroyed in a quarter of an hour. 220 meters of first-level passage, an unknown length of second and third-level passages, 14 chambers, a hospital, a kitchen, a command bunker that held the operational plans of an NVA regiment. All of it gone, collapsed into the earth that spawned it, reduced to a mass of broken clay and shattered bamboo that will settle and compress and become, in time, indistinguishable from the surrounding soil. And in the wreckage, somewhere, the bodies. Skelton in the junction room, still under his poncho liner. The NVA defenders who died at their posts. And Bùi Minh, somewhere in the passages he knew better than anyone. His body in the earth he spent his life navigating from both sides of a war.
Crenshaw watches the demolition from a paddy dike 50 meters east of the tree line. He sits on the mud with his legs extended, his .45 in its holster, his hands resting on his thighs. The dust drifts past him. The ground beneath him is solid. He is thinking about Nguyen Van Phan, the engineer, the builder, the man who spent 5 years constructing an underground fortress and who destroyed it himself rather than let the enemy take it. Crenshaw will never meet him, will never see his face, will never know whether the man survived the collapses or died in them, whether he escaped through a passage that no one mapped, or whether he chose to stay, to go down with his creation the way a captain goes down with a ship. But Crenshaw knows him, in the way that a man knows his opposite number, the adversary who operates in the same medium, by the same rules, with the same skills pointed in the opposite direction. The quality of the tunnels told Crenshaw everything about the man who built them. The precision, the patience, the understanding of earth and air and water and darkness that can only come from years of living in those elements. If they had met under different circumstances, if the war had not put them on opposite sides of a line drawn by men who have never been underground, Crenshaw thinks they would have understood each other. The coal miner's son and the tunnel engineer. 2 men who go into the earth because someone has to, and because they are better at it than anyone else. Respect for the enemy is not disloyalty, it is honesty. And honesty, Crenshaw has learned, is the only thing that survives the tunnels. He picks up a handful of laterite soil and lets it run through his fingers. Red earth, the blood-colored soil of Coochie. It stains everything it touches, his skin, his clothes, his nails, his memories. He will carry Coochie in his pores for years, and in his dreams for longer. He lets the last of the earth fall and wipes his hand on his fatigues. The dust plume from the demolished complex is thinning, drifting, dissolving into the afternoon air. In a week, the sinkholes will fill with rainwater. In a month, the vegetation will begin to reclaim the broken ground. In a year, there will be no visible trace of what was here. The earth heals its wounds faster than the men who make them. Doc Restrepo sits under the tarp at the command post and writes his 3rd letter. This one is different from the first 2. This one is for Bùi Minh. He does not know Bùi Minh's family. He does not know if the Kit Carson Scout has a family. The file says he defected from the NVA in 1965 and was processed through the Chu Hoi Center at Lai Khe. It does not say whether he left anyone behind. It does not say whether anyone is waiting for him. Doc writes the letter anyway.
He addresses it to the Chu Hoi program coordinator, asking that it be forwarded to any next of kin that might exist. He writes that Bùi Minh served with distinction, that he was brave, that he died helping the men he had chosen to serve. He does not write about the moral complexity of a man who destroys what he once built. That complexity is not something a letter can contain. He folds the letter and places it in an envelope and writes the address and adds it to the mailbag with the other 2.
3 letters, 3 dead men. The arithmetic of a 3-day operation that intelligence will call a success because the documents recovered from the command bunker are worth more than anyone expected. The documents are already in transit. A helicopter arrived at 1100 hours, and an intelligence officer with clean fatigues and soft hands took the 3 waterproof bags and signed a receipt and flew away without asking about the men who carried them up from 30 feet underground. The papers will go to a building in Saigon with air conditioning and fluorescent lights and desks where analysts will read Nguyen Van Phan's diary and map the NVA's order of battle and never once think about the darkness where the information was found. This is how it works. The men who go underground carry up what they find, and the men who stay above ground use it. And the space between those 2 groups is a gulf wider than any tunnel. Doc finishes the letter. He closes his pen. He looks at his hands, which are stained with Taggart's blood under the fingernails, despite 3 washings. Some stains do not come out. Preacher sits against a tree with his left arm in a sling that Doc fashioned from a cravat bandage. The shoulder is dislocated, not fractured. Doc reduced it in the field, a procedure that involved Preacher biting down on a stick, while Doc manipulated the joint back into its socket with a force that made both men sweat. The shoulder will heal. The arm will regain its function. The demolitions work, for the moment, will have to wait. He is reading his spare Bible, Psalm 23. He has read it before. He has read it hundreds of times. But today the words carry a weight they have not carried before, because today the valley of the shadow of death is not a metaphor. It is a tunnel, 24 inches wide, 30 feet underground, where a man named Skelton died, with Preacher's Bible on his chest. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Preacher reads the words and does not find comfort. Not yet. Comfort, for Preacher, is not a feeling. It is a decision. A commitment to believe that the suffering has meaning, even when the evidence suggests otherwise. 3 men dead, a tunnel complex destroyed, documents recovered that may save lives or may sit in filing cabinets until the war ends and no one cares. The meaning is not in the outcome. The meaning is in the act, in going down, in carrying the light into the dark, in being willing and being scared and doing it anyway. Preacher closes his Bible. He holds it against his chest, over his heart, in the same place where his other Bible now rests on a dead man's heart underground. 2 Bibles, 2 hearts, one still beating. He closes his eyes and sleeps. The first sleep in 3 days. It is instant and deep and dreamless, the sleep of a body that has reached the end of what it can endure and has simply stopped, the way a machine stops when the fuel runs out. No transition, no settling. One moment awake, the next moment gone. Rourke sits at the edge of the perimeter, alone, staring at nothing. He has not spoken since they surfaced. He has not eaten. He has not slept. He sits on the paddy dike with his knees drawn up and his arms wrapped around his shins and his chin resting on his kneecaps,
and he looks at the world with the expression of a man who is seeing it for the first time and is not impressed. He is 19 years old. He has been in Vietnam for 26 days. In that time, he has crawled through tunnels built by men who want to kill him. He has heard a man die of a gunshot wound in a space the size of a coffin. He has seen a dead man's face in a flashlight beam. He has had a snake drop onto his neck in a room 30 feet underground. He has swum through flooded tunnels in total darkness. He has listened to explosions collapse the earth above and around him. He has survived. The word feels too simple. Survival implies that the person who comes out the other side is the same person who went in. That is not true. Rourke went into the tunnels as a 19-year-old private first class from South Boston, with red hair and freckles, and a belief that the war was something that happened to you, and you endured it and went home. The person who sits on this paddy dyke is older, not in years, in something else. In the knowledge that the human body can be destroyed by a sharpened piece of bamboo, and that the human mind can be broken by darkness and confinement, and that both of these things almost happened to him, and that they will almost happen to him again, because his tour is not over, and the tunnels are not finished, and there will be more operations, and more descents, and more moments when the flashlight flickers, and the darkness closes in, and the only thing between him and oblivion is a .45 caliber pistol and the breathing exercise that Crenshaw taught him on his first day. 4 in, hold 4, 4 out. He breathes. The air is warm and wet, and it smells of dust and diesel, and the faint, sweet scent of the Vietnamese countryside in the dry season. It is air, surface air. He breathes it and does not take it for granted. Someone sits beside him. Crenshaw. The sergeant lowers himself onto the paddy dyke with the careful movements of a man whose joints have been punished by 3 days of crawling, and he sits beside Rourke and looks at the same nothing that Rourke is looking at. Neither of them speaks. There is nothing to say that the silence does not already contain. They sit on the dyke and watch the sun move, and the dust settle, and the sky change from the pale blue of afternoon to the deeper blue of approaching evening. The sun is setting. The sky above Coochie turns from blue to gold to orange to the deep, bruised purple that precedes tropical darkness. The colors are extravagant, almost obscene in their beauty, as if the sky is compensating for what has happened beneath it. Crenshaw sits on the dyke and watches the colors and thinks about nothing. Not about the tunnels, not about the dead, not about the maps and documents that are already in Saigon, being read by men who will use them to plan operations that will send other men underground, in other complexes, in other tree lines. He thinks about nothing because thinking about nothing is the only rest available to a mind that has spent 3 days underground. He will go back. He knows this. There will be another complex, another briefing, another morning when he strips his gear down to a pistol and a flashlight and a towel and goes into the earth. The tunnels of Coochie extend for hundreds of kilometers, a network that no operation can fully destroy, a hydra that grows 2 heads for every one that is cut. But that is tomorrow. That is next week. That is next month. Tonight, there is the sunset, and the quiet, and the particular peace that comes after the worst thing you can imagine has happened, and you are still here. Preacher is asleep against his tree. Doc is cleaning his instruments by the last of the daylight. Haldane is on the radio, reporting to division, using words like mission accomplished and significant intelligence value that describe the operation without touching it. Rourke is beside him on the dyke, breathing, staring, being alive. The perimeter soldiers light small fires as the darkness comes. The fires dot the tree line like orange stars, mirroring the real stars that are beginning to appear in the purple sky above. Somewhere to the north, artillery fires, the sound arriving seconds after the flash, a distant thunder that has nothing to do with the weather. Vietnam at night, the sounds of insects and frogs,
and the occasional bark of a gecko. The smell of wood smoke and rain coming, and the red earth that stains everything. The country that Crenshaw has spent 3 tours in and does not understand, and may never understand, because understanding implies a narrative, and the narrative of this war has been lost in the tunnels and the tree lines and the paddies where the water buffaloes stand in the morning mist and do not move. Crenshaw thinks about Haldane County. He has not been home in 2 years. His mother writes every week, letters in blue ink on lined paper, telling him about the weather and the church social and the neighbor's dog that keeps digging under the fence. She does not ask when he is coming home. She has learned that the question causes more pain than the absence. His father does not write. His father sits in the same chair at the same kitchen table and drinks the same coffee and reads the same newspaper. And when Crenshaw's mother reads his letters aloud, his father listens without comment and then goes to bed. He has never said he is proud. He has never said he is afraid. He has said, once, in a letter that Crenshaw's mother included in her envelope, 4 words in pencil on the back of a grocery receipt. "Come home, son. Please." Crenshaw carries the receipt in his wallet. It is the only thing from home that he takes underground. Not a photograph, not a letter. A grocery receipt with 4 words in pencil that are smudged now from the sweat and the handling and the years. He takes it out and looks at it in the fading light. The pencil marks are barely visible. The receipt itself is soft as cloth, folded and unfolded so many times that the creases have become seams. "Come home, son. Please." He folds it and puts it back and looks at the sky. The last light of the sun touches the horizon and holds, a thin line of gold between the earth and the purple above. Then it is gone, and the darkness comes, and Coochie is dark the way it has always been dark, the way it was dark before the war and will be dark after the war. A darkness that covers the paddies and the tree lines, and the ground that looks solid and peaceful, and is neither. Somewhere beneath the surface, in every direction, the earth is hollow. Tunnels run under the paddies, under the villages, under the roads where convoys pass and the bases where soldiers sleep. They were here before the Americans came, and they will be here after the Americans leave. They are the war beneath the war, the conflict that happens in silence, in darkness, in spaces too small for anyone who is not willing to crawl. The men who fight this war are not on any monument. They are not in any headline. They are small men with pistols and flashlights who go into the earth because someone has to, and who come back up carrying whatever they find, and who do it again the next day and the day after that until their tour is over or the earth decides to keep them. 3 men did not come back from this operation. Taggart, who was afraid of the underground and died above it. Skelton, who was not afraid and died below it. Bùi Minh, who belonged to both worlds and was claimed by the one he chose to return to. Their names will be in a report. Their families will receive letters. Their personal effects will be boxed and shipped and opened in living rooms in Kansas and Texas and wherever Bùi Minh's people are, if he has people, if there is anyone left to open a box and hold a dead man's compass and wonder what he was doing so far from home. The war continues. It has always continued. It continues in the tunnels that were not destroyed and the tunnels that are being dug right now
to night, by men with short-handled hoes and infinite patience, carving new passages beneath the surface while the Americans sleep above. Crenshaw knows this. He has always known it. The tunnels cannot be destroyed because the tunnels are not structures. They are a strategy, an idea. And you cannot collapse an idea, no matter how much C4 you have. He lies back on the paddy dike and looks at the stars. The same stars that shine over Harlan County, over South Boston, over Birmingham, over
Amarillo, over whatever place Bùi Minh once called home. The stars do not care about the tunnels or the war or the men who fight both. They shine on everything equally, the living and the dead, the surface and the underground, the light and the dark. Crenshaw breathes. 4 in, hold 4, 4 out. The breathing exercise that keeps you alive in the tunnels and keeps you sane above them. He breathes, and the night air fills his lungs, and the stars turn slowly overhead, and Coochie sleeps, or pretends to sleep, the way it always does. Beside him, Rourke breathes, the same rhythm. 4 in, hold 4, 4 out. The kid learned it 2 days ago. He will use it for the rest of his life. They breathe together. 2 men on a paddy dike, breathing the surface air, feeling the solid ground beneath them, knowing that below the ground the darkness waits, as it has always waited, patient and empty and full. The fire pops, the insects sing, the artillery stops, and the silence that follows is not the silence of the tunnels, where the earth absorbs everything and gives back only echoes. It is the silence of the surface, where sound can travel as far as it likes, in every direction, unconfined, free. Crenshaw closes his eyes. Tomorrow there will be more tunnels. Tonight there is the sky.